Howdy, hello, hello. I am back. It's Friday. Yay! It's Friday. Can you guys see me and hear me okay? Hello. Thank you for being here. Please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, notifications. If you can become a member to support the channel, that would be great. I know there's a lot of drama to cover. I will be covering the drama again tomorrow. Needed a break. I know I've been heavy on the JLR stuff, so I kind of want to revert back to cases that need a lot of attention as well. And we're going to cover Sandra Birchmore today. The last and only video I did on Sandra Birchmore was like a month into me creating my channel. So long ago, probably wasn't the best live ever. So today I'm going to make sure you hear everything about the Sandra Birchmore case and the timeline. She was a teenager at the time of her death. She was connected to local law enforcement. She was groomed when she entered a teenage, she wanted to be a police. So she did one of those academy things where she enrolled, to get all the down, the things that she needed to get down to become a police officer as she grew into an adult. There's two twin brothers, the Farwell brothers, Matthew and William, who were taking advantage of her. She was being groomed and raped by both of these older policemen. One of them got her pregnant. He killed her in her apartment. By basically tying her neck around. Yeah, I know. It's very brutal. I'm not gonna tell you all the details now because we're gonna learn it from the documents. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna read an article. We're gonna go through the timeline day by day. So it's probably gonna be a little bit longer today. I'm going to be reading to you so you know how that goes. And I do have court documents. I might have to split the live though, because there's a lot of information here that we need to cover. Another 𝗝𝐿𝐶 Fitzsimmons. Yes. Another Karen Reed, 𝗝𝐿𝐶 Fitzsimmons. Very, very sad. I hate these cases with children being raped and whatnot. Hey, KB Investigates, thanks for being here. Evie, Rudy, thank you. Joker, thank you for being here. Hey, Mally, road trip, I'll be listening. Okay, good. This is a good one to listen to. So thank you for being here and supporting me. Shout out to all the replay viewers. We're growing here in Mellyverse, and I just want to say I appreciate that. And I can't wait to see where we go. And like I said, replay viewers are just as important as everyone in the live chat and everyone watching. So shout out to all the replay viewers as well. I'm going to pull up a document by Boston Magazine. It's done really well. So I'm going to read that and then we'll go into depth. There's a plethora of documents, just like Laura Owens, which we will continue tomorrow. So today we're just going to go through the Sandra Birchmore timeline and then the investigation timeline. And when this goes to court, we will be ready to cover the trial. I was going to cover Courtney Clenny, and that's not happening anymore. So we'll definitely have to get into another trial. Courtney Clenny has been delayed once again. Horrific injustice. October 2026 can't come soon enough for Farwell. Thanks, Melly, for bringing awareness to this case. Happy Friday to y'all. Thank you, Christine. I'm very glad that you're familiar with this case. If you're not, I will make sure you guys are by the time you leave here tonight. And yes, justice for Sandra. So I'm going to read this article by Boston Magazine. I can drop the link as well if you guys are interested. I know, dang it. It's very sad, very sad. So growing up in Stoughton, Sandra Birchmore idolized police officers. She dreamed of becoming one herself someday and longed to enroll in the town's police explorer program. That's what it was, not the academy, the explorer program, hoping for mentorship and direction. Sandra had long auburn hair, a smattering of freckles running across the bridge of her nose, and a smile that often hid her family's difficulties and struggle making friends. At school, she was picked on and bullied, while at home, she and her chronically ill single mom, Denise, often moved around. Sometimes they lived on their own. Other times, they stayed with Denise's uncle and aunt, Claire and Gerald Godet. For much of her life, Sandra believed they were her maternal grandparents. On her father's side, Sandra had no one. She had never knew her dad. Her mother gave her the last name of her late husband, who died years before Sandra was born. Concerned for her daughter's future, Denise finally granted Sandra's wish in 2010 when Sandra, only 12 years old, joined the Police Explorer program. This is where it gets fucked up. In the program, Sandra met Matthew Farwell, a policeman who had once been an explorer too, 6'4" with dark, penetrating eyes. Farwell had dropped out of high school and served in the military before joining the force in Wellesley and then Stoughton. He took Birchmore under his wing, helping her with homework and spending time with her outside of the program. In 2013, the relationship crossed a line. Federal prosecutors say that when the 27-year-old cop had sex with Sandra, just 15 years old, a month before he married his wife. What a pig. Yes, Abby. Yes. This is a new one for me. Oh, buckle down. You're going to be pissed off. If I could box Farwell, whatever his name is, I would absolutely do it. We don't condone violence, just as a sports for educational purposes. They began a physical relationship that spanned nearly a decade, even as Farwell built a family with his spouse. In late December 2020, Sandra became pregnant and said that Farwell was the father. She was excited about becoming a mother and envisioned one crucial difference between her child's life and her own. She was determined to put the father's name on the birth certificate. 5 weeks later, Sandra was found dead in her apartment. Despite evidence of an intimate relationship and Farwell being the last known contact, local and state police hardly investigated their fellow lawmen's potential involvement. Instead, officials quickly ruled Birchmore's death a suicide. Case closed. The following account is based on facts alleged in police, FBI, and court documents, a trove of text messages submitted to the court in an FBI affidavit, and this magazine's interview with law enforcement officials. It was nearly 4 years for loved ones, online activists, and ultimately FBI agents to unearth damning evidence that led to Farwell's arrest on suspicion of killing Sandra. Farwell, who had pleaded not guilty to federal charge of killing a victim or witness, has been in custody since August 28th. His lawyer, public defender Jane Peachy, did not return requests for comment. And now, as the state police reel from another embarrassing scandal, one haunting question lingers. Why is justice for Sandra Birchmore taking so long? Yes, another corrupt cop one. This is Sandra on the screen. So sad. As a child, Sandra's troubled home life was hardly a secret. Beyond the lingering scent of cigarette smoke from a household of smokers, her behavior spoke volumes. Quote unquote, she wasn't a bad kid, recalled a former teacher, speaking on the condition of anonymity. Just a child starved for attention, acting out to be noticed. The signs of neglect were unmistakable. When Sandra was 9, she and her mother enrolled in the town's Strengthening Families program, a 14-week course aimed at supporting vulnerable families and children. While there are no official records to indicate what prompted them to join, Denise seemed to get something out of the course. Quote unquote, I like the fact that they showed you what your tools are, she explained in an interview with Stoughton Journal after graduating from the program in 2006. For example, instead of yelling at your child, sit down and talk it out. If you are both angry, instead of trying to work out the situation right then, take a time out and come back and deal with it. Despite the course, Sandra continued to struggle. Andrea 𝗍𝗪𝗍, Birchmore's 7th grade teacher at O'Donnell Middle School, described her as needy and prone to stretching the truth to gain attention. She got along with adults better than her peers, 𝗍𝗪𝗍 said, something that made her very socially dysfunctional in school. Kids taunted her relentlessly, and when she sought help from her teachers, they bullied her even more. By the time she was 12, Sandra was determined to find community outside the classroom. The waitlisted for the Stoughton Police Explorers in March of 2010, she became a standby member in the program, watching Officer Robert Devine bark orders at teenage cadets. Officer Robert Devine, don't really give a shit what his name is. He needs to be also arrested, and you will see why. From the outside, the then chief Paul Shastany recalled Devine ran the explorers. I don't know if it's Devine or Devine. Like a drill sergeant, like it was Paris Island. Once inside, though, Stoughton's police department was far from shipshape. Federal authorities had their sights set on veteran officer Anthony Bickerton, who was embroiled in an illicit scheme with a criminal informant. His so-called snitch would pilfer high-value items, and then Bickerton would help sell them around town. The operation, spanning a decade, ended when Bickerton was convicted in 2010. That same year, the department faced another scandal when Officer Richard Bennett resigned following a foolhardy trip to Stoughton Strip Club. While on duty and in uniform, he snapped a picture with an entertainer known as Bridget, the midget. Powers billed as the world's smallest porn star. Okay, I didn't know that about the other officer. Blissfully unaware, Sandra still idolized police officers, a perspective nurtured by Gerald Goddett, a decorated Army vet who stood in as her grandfather and fostered her love for law enforcement. When Gerald died in May of 2012, Sandra felt gutted, her cousin Barbara Wright recalls, describing a young girl suddenly robbed of her North Star who continued to flounder academically and socially in school. By then, Farwell had a secure job with Stoughton Police as well as an instructor role with the Explorers program. So are you catching on? Matthew Farwell was the instructor for the Explorers program, and that's how he met Sandra. Starting in 2012, he began to meet Birchmore after school in Stoughton's 1960s-style flat roof public library, where he helped her study and prepare for tests. Yet homework wasn't the only thing on his mind. "Quote unquote, did you think I wouldn't want to fuck you?" Farwell texted Birchmore in June of 2019, reminiscing about their time together in the library 7 years prior. Farwell didn't have to wait very long. The following year, on April 10th, 2013, when Birchmore was only 15 years old, they had sex for the first time, according to an FBI affidavit. Farwell was particularly proud of taking her virginity even years later, according to the text messages uncovered by the FBI, sending her questions in 2018 and 2020, including, quote unquote, "What was the first day you said, 'Oh my God, I want this guy to be my first. I want to feel him inside of me,'" end quote, followed by, quote unquote, "I absolutely would have effed you" in 2012, when Birchmore was just 14 years old. In another text, Sandra wrote, quote unquote, "I had butterflies so bad the day you took my virginity," adding that it was a quote unquote best day of her life. Another time, Farwell told Birchmore it was, quote unquote, "a big thing to get to be the first." As an adult, Sandra admitted that she started thinking about Farwell sexually when he began flirting with her at the library, but didn't want to say anything. "Because of my age," she texted, "I didn't want you to be like, oh, no, WTF." Another time, Farwell wrote, quote unquote, "If I pushed, I absolutely could have effed you without condoms from day one." To which Sandra answered, quote unquote, "I was kind of scared to say no in the beginning, not knowing how you would take it." Are you guys freaking out? Yeah. Hey, Adrian. It's disgusting. Meanwhile, Farwell's involvement with Birchmore didn't stop him from pursuing a more traditional and legal romantic relationship. On May 11th, 2013, he tied the knot with his wife, but his marriage didn't mark the end of the relationship with the teenage Birchmore. They continued to sleep together throughout her high school years. An FBI affidavit tells how Farwell and Birchmore would meet for their intimate encounters while Farwell was on duty. Yeah, on duty. What a pig. The FBI affidavit also shows that Farwell would use quote unquote forceful oral, vaginal, and anal sex acts to punish Birchmore for getting bad grades, having intercourse with other people, and failing to share her cell phone location. By 2013, Birchmore's personal journals described the two incorporating choking into their sexual repertoire. Nonetheless, Sandra had made significant academic strides and was on track to graduate in time. In the spring of 2014, her mother penned a letter to Devine. In it, according to Stoughton Police internal investigation records, she thanked the Stoughton Police Department and Devine in particular for running the police explorers program. Here she is with Officer Devine in this picture. Look at how little she looks. Yeah, perverts. Yes, I do, Evie. We will play that. Hello, Q. Good to see you, friend. On a bright June day in 2015, Sandra hurried across the Stoughton High School football field to collect her diploma. The wind tussled an American flag in the background as she walked across the stage in a cap, gown, and flip-flops, her auburn hair neatly bundled at the nape of her neck. That summer marked the beginning of a downward spiral for Birchmore. With high school and the Explorers program running behind her, she found herself against at loose ends, living at home without much direction. Meanwhile, Farwell's life seemed to be flourishing. By May of 2016, Farwell and his wife had settled into a spacious four-bedroom house in Northeastern, purchased for more than $500,000, and built their family with two children. Yet, as Farwell's family life blossomed, Sandra's world continued to crumble. In May, her mother died suddenly of a massive stroke at just 52. It was horrible, Wright recalled. Sandra was shattered. The pain only deepened a month later when Claire, the woman Birchmore had always known as her grandmother, passed away at 89. Though her aunts, Darlene Smith and Alice McCain, moved into Sandra's childhood home to help, their relationship often proved tense. In May of 2020, conflict erupted over the cells of the house, Sandra's only true home. During an argument with Smith, Wright says the situation escalated and Smith called the police, claiming Sandra might harm herself. Responding officers brought Sandra to the hospital, and after a brief assessment, medical staff determined she posed no risk to herself and discharged her within hours. Soon after, according to the FBI affidavit, Farwell began sexting Sandra, who later apologized for worrying him. Quote unquote, "I wasn't worried," he replied. "I know you are fine." Sandra still dreamed of a career in law enforcement and had enrolled in Massasoit Community College's criminal justice program. I don't know if I'm saying that right. At the same time, her relationship with Farwell took an increasingly violent undertones thanks to his appetite for sexual fantasy role play. Quote unquote, "Maybe I'll hold you down by your throat while I pound you," he texted her in 2020, adding that he wanted her to, quote unquote, "feel like, oh my God, is this really happening and I can't stop it." He also shared RAPE fantasies with Birchmore and instructed her role to sex play involving pedophilia and non-consensual incest, including pretending that he was her brother coming into her room at night. This is sick. It's sick. During this period, Sandra also had sex with other men, including Farwell's twin brother, William, known as Billy Farwell, a fellow Stoughton police officer. So, not only is Matthew grooming her and doing all of this with her and having a relationship with her when she's a kid, so then her brother starts doing the same thing. Yeah. Haley Souza, a close friend of Sandra's and a student at the community college, told Boston that Matthew Farwell exerted control over Sandra through dominance and authority, while William presented himself as the sweet one, the best friend with benefits. It was a very sick, good cop, bad cop relationship she had with them, rife with elements of BDSM and psychological manipulation. Yes, Evie. It's sick. In their discussions, Sousa remembered Birchmore mentioning an event that took place 2 years after William Farwell began his career with the Stoughton police in March of 2017 while a member of the National Guard. Sandra was having sex with one brother in her car when the other brother unexpectedly arrived and became upset. Sousa also mentioned becoming aware of another figure in Sandra's life emerging around this time. This turned out to be Robert Devine, the other cop in the Explorers program. So you have Matthew and William, two twin brothers, taking advantage of her. And now you have another officer of the Stoughton Police Department getting involved. This turned out to be Robert, the man Birchmore first met when she joined the Explorers program. An internal investigation report later showed that Robert used the moniker, quote unquote, Marty Riggs, apparently inspired by Mel Gibson's character in the movie Lethal Weapon, to communicate with Sandra over Facebook Messenger, discussing sex acts and planning to meet with her while Devine was on duty. Quote unquote, Sandra is a sex trafficking victim, Sousa says. They told her to do things and send pictures, videos of it all. Matt knew she would be obedient to him. That was the dynamic. They mentally manipulated the girl and she had no voice. The content of their text messages and their nature of the videos she was asked to share were so alarming that one investigator privy to them says, quote unquote, he wanted to wash his eyes out with holy water after seeing them. One of the many pornographic videos now in federal custody, according to several knowledgeable law enforcement sources, features Sandra with a U.S. Army Reserve recruiter stationed in Quincy. Sandra, hoping to become a police officer, had sought military service to bolster her credentials and asked William Farwell to connect her with someone who could help. According to an internal investigation report from the Stoughton Police Department after Birchmore's death, William Farwell introduced her to an army buddy. Soon, according to a review of Birchmore's Facebook activity, she and the recruiter became Facebook friends, which violated military fraternization rules related to prospective recruits. And eventually, they had sex, a video of which was shared with William Farwell. Investigators have passed the video along to Army officials. Once a visible public face for an Army recruitment at community events, the recruiter did not respond to requests for comment and is no longer stationed at the Quincy recruiting office. All of these people in power took advantage of her. What in the actual, yeah. Never send your kid away to an Explorers program or Girl Scouts. Who could she go to for help? Nobody. She has nobody. She has no family. This is why she depended on them. As the time passed, Sandra began to yearn for something she could call her own, a baby. She talked about becoming a mother constantly, Susan recalls. She had a plan. No matter what, she was going to have a baby. This fixation led Sandra to spend excessively on pregnancy tests, frequently borrowing money from Sousa to fund her compulsion. The financial strain and concerns for Sandra's safety began to erode their friendship. Sousa told her that, quote unquote, trying hard to get pregnant, she was going to get herself killed. These are the Farwell brothers in this picture. Yeah, it's bad, guys. It's bad. Matthew is on the far left and the twin brother William is on the right. Absolute pigs. Yes, they groomed her and passed her around like an effing piece of meat. And Sandra didn't know any better, you know? She didn't wanna be alone, which I think is what psychologically drove her to want a baby. She had no family. It's so sad. In late December of 2020, Sandra sat down in front of the rainbow pack of magic markers and a sheet of poster board. In a girly decorative script, she wrote, quote unquote, congrats, we're going to be parents. She placed stickers of baby animals, a smiling monkey, a zebra, a frog, a giraffe, all along the poster's borders. Then she snapped a picture of it and sent it to Matthew Farwell. Sandra was 3 weeks pregnant and over the moon at the prospect of being a mother. Matthew Farwell, however, didn't take the news so well. Quote unquote, I have literally nothing to say right now, Farwell texted. How far are you? Sandra responds, regardless of how far she responded, we're keeping it. Farwell says, okay, we'll need to talk then, he replied. Sandra answered with an uncharacteristic snark. No shit, that's obvious. Then she added a crucial imperative, and the birth certificate is being signed. Sandra's life had recently taken a positive turn. In October, she landed a new job as a teacher's assistant at East Elementary School in Sharon, along with a cozy one-bedroom apartment in Canton. With her cousin Wright's support as a co-signer, she also secured a loan for a 2018 Chevy Cruze. Though Sandra had continued to pursue her dream of becoming a police officer by taking the civil service test, Wright says, she also began learning a new career path by enrolling in nursing classes. Most significantly, though, for the first time since she was 15, she realized she held sway in her relationship with Farwell. The catalyst for Birchmore's decision to leverage this newfound power came from an unexpected source. Stoughton Animal Control Officer Joshua Heel, who admitted in his response to a civil lawsuit filed by Smith, Sandra's aunt, that he received oral sex from Birchmore on a couch inside the town animal shelter, informed her that Farwell was expecting a third child with his wife. This news came as a blow to Sandra. According to the FBI affidavit and sources close to the case, she confided in Heel, revealing everything Farwell had sworn her to secrecy about her unconventional relationship with the Farwells and Robert Devine, and the explicit, often violent messages Farwell had sent her. In a civil lawsuit court document, Heel says his sex with Sandra was consensual, and a judge dismissed a battery of civil claims that Birchmore's aunt had sought to bring against him. Sandra's next move, ? She drafted a message to Farwell's wife, poised to disclose Farwell's decade-long affair. However, instead of sending it, she saw an opportunity and presented Farwell with an ultimatum. In exchange for her silence, he would have to agree to unprotected sex for the purpose of conceiving a child. Farwell said yes, but had specific plans for how the sex would play out. You say no and make me take it. Full R word, he texted her. Another time before meeting up, she asked before he arrived, do you want me to just take what you do and try and say no? I know being told no is your favorite. He responded, say no. Messages between Sandra and Farwell, according to the FBI affidavit, showed she was determined to conceive. And in the process, she assured Farwell that she wouldn't talk shit about your wife or your kids. That way, we both get what we want. Sandra's persistence paid off. After a series of negative pregnancy tests, she found herself face to face with a long-awaited positive result. But her fragile arrangement with Farwell began to fall apart when a colleague of Farwell's informed him that one of Sandra's friends had contacted the station, exposing what the friend called their illicit sexual relationship. Farwell panicked, urged his coworker to keep quiet about the call, and immediately reached out to Sandra. I literally can't believe this is even real life. What else do I have to worry about now? He wrote her. Which other friend will do something tomorrow? In January, Sandra confided to her baby's godmother-to-be via text that Farwell had snapped when Sandra showed him a sonogram image, saying, "That's not my child," and pushing her to the ground. That same month, Farwell asked for a key to her apartment, which she made for him at a nearby Walmart. When he showed up to retrieve it, his behavior raised suspicions as he inspected her bathroom and closet. It was just really odd. He started to look around. I don't know, Sandra texted a friend. The friend responded with, "That's weird." Sandra says, "Yeah, it was really weird." Despite the red flags, Farwell seemed to allay Sandra's concerns. She told her friend, maybe he's coming around. On July 10th, 2028, this is Sandra uploading her profile picture. This is crazy, you guys. Hey, UFC Greg. Good to see you. Hello, Mr. Enriquez. Good to see you. Sorry that I was reading, so I didn't see your messages. Shout out to you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Good to see you. Yeah, I know it makes me sick. I didn't know of this case till I watched a show on TV. You guys, it's crazy. It really is. Let's continue. On February 1st, 2021, as nor'easters barreled toward Massachusetts, meteorologists predicted snowfall across the region. When Sharon Public Schools, where Sandra worked, announced an early closure, she immediately texted Farwell, apparently hoping to spend the cozy snow day together. He tearfully replied that he wouldn't be in the area. Unbeknownst to Sandra, Farwell had more immediate demands. His pregnant wife was about to give birth. Sandra, though, was preoccupied with her own pregnancy. In the days before her death, she planned her pregnancy announcement for Valentine's Day, as well as a gender reveal, and made an OBGYN appointment for a few weeks out. With no detail too far off in the future, she even arranged for someone to watch her two cats around her due date. That afternoon, Sandra texted Farwell about a baby gift that had been delivered to her Canton apartment and then shared her excitement for a March baby shower. She ordered DoorDash delivery, picked it up in the lobby at 5:01 p.m., according to the security surveillance, and briefly went outside to scrape snow off her car, returning back inside at 5:33 p.m. Throughout the evening, Sandra casually moved from one activity to the next. She texted friends and shopped online for baby furniture. She chatted with Wright, who was in Seattle, over Facebook, and threw a load of laundry into the dryer and another into the washing machine. Then, Farwell texted her at 9:08 p.m., wanting to know if he could, quote unquote, come by for a second. The FBI affidavit reveals. 2 minutes later, she texted him back that the door would be open. 4 minutes after that, security footage captured Matthew Farwell wearing a hoodie and a face mask entering her apartment building. Her cell phone cataloged her final steps at 9:40 p.m. 3 minutes later, at 9:43 p.m., cameras recorded Farwell's speedy exit. We'll watch the video in a second. The next morning, a new life entered the world. Farwell's wife gave birth to the couple's third child, a boy. Are you guys catching on? He went and fucking killed Sandra. And then he had a baby the next morning. How sickening is this? Hello, Roxanne. Good to see you, lovely. And hello, Herb. Good to see you as well. Are you guys pissed off? I am. Later, thanks to the investigative efforts of the podcaster Kirk, the journalist, to raise questions about Birchmore's case, a startling photo emerged. Farwell cradling his newborn son, still wearing the very outfit he'd worn earlier at Birchmore's apartment under the watchful eye of a security camera. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I can't get over it. By the friggin' morning of February 4th, 2021, Sandra hadn't been seen in days. Concerned, the staff at her school requested a wellness check. As snowflakes swirled in the biting wind, Canton police arrived at Sandra's apartment complex. They banged on her locked door, the same one she'd left open for Matthew. No answer. After circling the parking lot, police report shows they found her car buried under the snow. With the key from the property manager, they carefully entered Sandra's home. Officers moved cautiously through the cluttered kitchenette and living room and past a tidy bathroom. When they entered Sandra's bedroom, according to police reports, a desk lamp illuminated an unmade bed. Christmas lights blinked around a window, and eyeglasses lay discarded on the mattress. On the floor, Sandra's body sat upright, a black strap around her neck tied to the closet doorknob. Her cell phone lay roughly a foot away, just beyond her grasp. The official response was swift but mechanical. Officers at the scene called their supervisor, who contacted state troopers. Though Sandra was beyond saving, emergency medical responders were still called to the scene, with a Canton firefighter putting on Tyvek booties and confirming her death at 11:46 a.m., according to police reports. In his report, the state trooper overseeing the case noted that there were no signs of anything suspicious. It appeared to be a tragic case of suicide. Is this the craziest thing ever or what? Yeah. Yeah. They try to say it was suicide. The phone call that ripped Darlene Smith's world apart came from an unexpected source, Canton police. Does that ring a bell? Canton police, Karen Reed. Yeah, R.I.P. Sandra. They found Sandra's body, and Smith was listed on Sandra's lease as emergency contact. Smith's lawyer says that one person on the other end of the line claimed that Sandra had taken her own life. Instantly, Smith knew with bone deep certainty that this wasn't true. When she spoke with Wright, Sandra's cousin, on the phone, both women shared the same misgiving. "Quote unquote, we agreed something just wasn't right," Wright recalls. "We didn't believe it was a suicide." Indeed, a read of state police office police reports from the scene that day, doses in hindsight, suggesting some potential oversights. The same trooper who'd initially noted nothing suspicious at Birchmore's apartment reported examining Sandra's body for signs of physical abuse, including grab marks, scratches, strikes, or defense wounds, but found none. He also noted no markings on the neck to indicate an attempt or struggle to loosen or remove the ligature. Notably, investigators quickly determined that Sandra's death was a suicide, later confirmed by the state's medical examiner. However, says Joe McDonald, a retired veteran homicide investigator for the Boston Police Department who now runs McDonald Investigations in Pembroke, just because it looks like a suicide doesn't mean that it is. No law enforcement officer can make that determination. Despite their investigation, state troopers also overlooked at least one crucial piece of evidence: Sandra's cherished necklace, a delicate gold chain adorned with a pink flamingo charm. Discovered by her family, according to the FBI affidavit, the necklace lay broken on the floor, entangled with a clump of hair. The origin of the hair remains a mystery, as it was never mentioned in any initial police report. Oddly, while this potential clue went unnoticed, the state police report did include a comment on Birchmore's housekeeping, noting, "quote unquote, trash and clumps of cat fur on the carpet," indicating that it had not been cleaned or vacuumed in some time. Later, an FBI agent's review of the state police crime scene photos revealed the startling oversight. In her affidavit, she noted the necklace was clearly visible in images taken before Sandra's body was moved to the morgue and cremated. The broken chain hanging from the left side of Sandra's neck, while the pink flamingo charm rested on her abdomen. Additionally, Sandra's behavior on the day of her alleged suicide was hardly that of someone planning to end her life. After all, she made appointments and performed routine tasks like clearing snow off her car. Her therapist, who had just seen her the day before, told the FBI that Sandra had expressed no suicidal thoughts or ideations leading up to her death, despite numerous calls to local and state police from Sandra's friends and family pointing to Farwell as a suspect with the means, the motive, and the opportunity to kill Sandra. Investigators seemed to dismiss him as a suspect. "Quote unquote, I told them Matt Farwell killed her," the cousin says. "No one listened to me." Meanwhile, state police pursued leads at Sandra's workplace. Through interviews with her coworkers who had only known her since October, roughly 4 months, yielded very little. They described Sandra as, "quote unquote, seeming off," but never mentioning abuse or fear retaliated to her boyfriend, identified only as a Stoughton police officer. One teacher labeled Sandra as an oversharer, a trooper noted, but had never mentioned anything about her boyfriend being mean to her. Another coworker affirmed that Sandra never expressed any concerns for her safety. Smith, Birchmore's aunt, was one of the first people to bring Farwell's name to investigators, according to state police reports, but it wasn't until 2 days after Sandra's body had been discovered that Matthew Farwell's involvement as the last person to likely see Sandra alive became official. Surveillance video from Sandra's lobby captured his imposing figure, which state troopers cautiously described as, "quote unquote, a male believed to be Matthew Farwell." Even then, the report concluded that the security tape provided no further information as to what happened. We're going to play those in a bit. Still, the video was enough evidence to at least warrant an interview with Farwell, a state police sergeant, also a Stoughton native and former Stoughton police officer who still occasionally played for the department's hockey team, took it on despite an arguable conflict of interest. The extent of the sergeant and Farwell's prior relationship is unclear, but the language that the sergeant used in his reports is decidedly chummy. After meeting Farwell in a school parking lot, the sergeant consistently referred to him as Matt through his reports rather than using formal titles such as Mr. or Detective Farwell. In his report, the sergeant detailed Matthew Farwell's account of his relationship with Sandra, painting a chaotic picture. Farwell spoke of learning about Birchmore's death and feeling sympathy for what he called a troubled life. A troubled life, eh? But you groomed her and took advantage of her because you knew about her troubled life. Is Canton Police a department of portal to hell or something? You know what? At this point, Q, fire everyone. I don't know if they could do that. I'm sure they can. Or no? What type of psychological testing is done for people applying to law enforcement? I feel bad for the law enforcements that are not. You know what makes me nervous is having kids one day and having to put them into a program like that. You never know where the predators are. It's really crazy. He described a drunken sexual encounter in 2020 and claimed that their last intimate contact was in October of that same year. Farwell denied paternity of Sandra's baby and recounted a visit to her apartment on February 1st, during which the two argued. He called her crazy and she called him a dick. Still, Farwell maintained that Sandra showed no signs of being suicidal and he left her apartment. He also told state police that Birchmore had other sexual partners during their time together. On February 9th, 2021, Farwell surrendered his personal phone to state police. Months later, Farwell's work phone from the Stoughton police was also logged into evidence. State troopers performed a data extraction on both devices, yet curiously found nothing of interest. Farwell's phones, the state police duly reported, surprisingly held very few clues. The day after Sandra's body was found, Stoughton's first female police chief, Donna McNamara, was growing increasingly concerned about the numerous statements the department had received regarding Sandra's involvement with the Farwells and Devine. Is it Devine? Robert Devine? I want to say it's Devine, but I don't know. We'll go with Devine. She initiated an internal affairs investigation led by Deputy Chief Brian Holmes, who recruited retired state police captain Paul L. Italian and forensic expert Michael Bates, lauded for his work that led to charges against Michelle Carter, a Massachusetts woman who had been convicted of involuntary manslaughter for urging her boyfriend over text to kill himself. Within weeks, the private and internal investigators uncovered thousands of text messages between Farwell and Sandra, contradicting the state police sergeant's official report, which claims to find no communication between Birchmore and Farwell on their phone, stating Farwell had deleted all the communications with Birchmore. The sergeant's separate report concerning Sandra's laptop data mentioned, quote unquote, approximately 12 months of iMessages, social media content, and other documents/databases, and alluded to sexual relationships with other men, but found no threats of harm from anyone, including Farwell. However, the internal affairs report found much more relevant information in the text messages, which showed that there was, in fact, evidence of statutory rape. As a result, the Stoughton Police Department placed Farwell on paid leave in February of 2021, though officials did not press felony charges, and for years, the case languished in limbo. The tide began to turn in 2023 when Minahan released his podcast about Sandra's case. Amongst his listeners was Melissa Berry, a content creator who specializes in advocating for families of homicide victims. The podcast inspired her and her friend to take a deeper interest into Sandra's case. Quote unquote, nobody was talking about Sandra. So I started the Justice for Sandra Birchmore Facebook page in February of 2023, she explains. I messaged every person affiliated with Sandra and Barbara got back to me. Wright, Sandra's cousin and co-signer of her car loan, was amongst the last people to communicate with Sandra on the night of her death. Sandra called her all the time, Barry says. Nobody thought she committed suicide. Nobody. In August of 2023, members of the Facebook group gathered outside of Norfolk District Attorney Michael Morrissey's office seeking answers. You guys, again, Michael Morrissey needs to be out. He should hold no title. He is the one involved with Karen Reed. Hey, Hossein, thank you for renewing your membership. I appreciate you, friend. Attorney Michael Morrissey's office seeking answers. We wrote letters and had flyers marched to his office, Barry says. He was supposedly on vacation. Undeterred, the group's social media efforts snowballed, keeping Sandra's death in the public eye. It helped that the case also shared similarities with the Karen Reed investigation. Both were handled by the Norfolk DA's office. As a result, justice for Sandra Birchmore drew supporters from the Free Karen Reed movement, growing Barry's Facebook page to more than 14,000 members. Unbeknownst to Sandra's supporters, FBI agents had been conducting their own investigation, and their findings painted a starkly different picture from the state police's official narrative, unearthing thousands of text messages dating back to 2019. The feds also brought in Bill Smock, an asphyxiation and strangulation case expert who testified at the Derek Chauvin trial in the wake of George Floyd's murder. Smock's analysis challenged the state police account, noting that the fracture in Sandra's hyoid bone was consistent with the seated position in which she was found, according to the FBI affidavit. As Smock explained to the FBI, seated hangings, classified as quote-unquote incomplete hangings, apply only partial body weight to the neck. During his extensive review of forensic literature, Smock also found no reported case of hyoid bone fractures in seated women. Rather, he told the FBI such fractures typically occur in strangulation assaults or full body weight hangings, not seated ones. On August 27, 2024, the FBI's compelling evidence against Farwell convinced a federal judge to issue an arrest warrant. The following morning, unaware of his impending fate, Farwell, now a truck company owner rather than a police officer, set out for the Riviera and gravel truck. As he pulled into a strip mall parking lot outside Sally Beauty Supply, a team of heavily armed FBI SWAT agents swarmed his vehicle. With weapons drawn, they ordered Farwell, clad in jeans and a t-shirt, to step outside with his hands up. He offered no resistance as officers arrested him on charges of killing a witness or victim and recited his Miranda rights. I love this picture too of this supporter, and it says, how many more Sandras are there? If they were grooming Sandra from the beginning, imagine how many other kids they took advantage of. How pissed would you be if that was your daughter going to the Police Explorer program and having 3 cops who are supposed to be quote unquote good people raping her? Yeah, you'd be pissed. I might have had to bail some of you out if possible. That afternoon, Farwell appeared in a South Boston federal courtroom for the first time. Prosecutors argued vehemently against bail, according to court filings, saying that the veteran officer had killed Sandra, a young pregnant woman whom he had spent years sexually exploiting. That's a good word right there, sexually exploiting. They claimed his actions were designed to conceal forever the truth about his years of criminal conduct targeting Sandra, that his conduct reveals such an indifference to human life, that he is a danger to both children and the community. Acting U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts, Joshua Levy, later weighed in during a press conference. Mr. Farwell went over to the apartment that evening and he strangled Sandra Birchmore to death. And he used his knowledge and experience as a law enforcement officer to stage her death to make it look like a suicide, he said. He covered his tracks in an attempt to get away with murder, and he almost did. Levy noted he's sharing the FBI's dogged investigation with the Norfolk County DA and the state police so they can assess whether state charges are warranted. Later in September, Farwell waived his detention release hearing, opting to stay in federal custody. It's uncertain whether he had anywhere else to go. His wife has remained silent about the case and has scrubbed all online traces of Farwell with herself and their 3 children. In the wake of Farwell's arrest, the ripples of the disturbing case continue to spread. His twin, William Farwell, was placed on leave in 2022 and has since lost his law enforcement certification after it was revealed that he executed unauthorized searches of the law enforcement database on himself and Sandra, as well as lied to authorities about his relationship with her. Internal investigation records also show that he knew Sandra was pregnant with her brother's baby and repeatedly had sex with her, including 22 days before she died. Imagine William went and had sex with Sandra, and Sandra's pregnant with his brother, baby. I might have to throw up. Hey, Avril, good to see you, love. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. We're covering Sandra Birchmore, which I know you are familiar with. Thank you for being here, Avril. Yeah, I'm so disturbed by this case. I really am. He'd since left Massachusetts and now serves in Arizona National Guard. Stoughton police placed Robert Devine on leave. And is it Devine or Devine? I think it's Devine, I said. Placed Devine on leave in April of 22, and he later resigned in August of 22 following internal affairs findings about his relationship with Sandra. 𝗝𝗃𝗃𝗍, the former Stoughton animal control officer, recently resigned from the Abington police force, where he was an officer from 2019 to 2022 and is cooperating with ongoing federal investigation. Meanwhile, as Farwell awaits trial, the justice for Sandra Birchmore continues to grow. What began as a small group of concerned citizens has evolved into a formidable force, advocating for accountability and scrutinizing both the alleged abusers and the law enforcement officials they believed failed to thoroughly investigate Sandra's death. It's growing every day, says Barry. We'll be out there until they're held accountable, no matter how long it takes. And I am with that. Absolutely. This was written in 2024. So there's the article I wanted to read. And now let's get into the full timeline. The timeline goes day by day, so we're going to learn. We're going to learn a lot. I see where they arrest suspects of crime, not put on leave. You know what? The whole put on leave thing really pisses me off. It's like Proctor. You know, Proctor was put on leave too. And Proctor's nasty. This one is sick of six. Get him out of there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's illegal going through police database. Sounds like a soap opera. Yeah, I know. Congratulations, 𝗝𝗍𝗍𝗃. Okay, so let's review. This is by Crime Time. I'm using them, so I'm reading off of their stuff. They do a phenomenal job. Sandra Marie Birchmore was born on May 13th, 1997. You know what? Her story deserves to be told. We might have already read some of this in the article, but everyone needs to know everything about this case and stand for supporting Sandra, because grooming, police being involved, it's sick. Family trauma, we all need to be aware and stand for Sandra, just like we did with Karen Reed, Kelsey Fitzsimmons, Ellen Greenberg is another one, and Sandra Birchmore. They still need justice. Just a child, a baby, Q. They were having sex with her from like 12 and up. It's really, really bad, but more common than people think. That's what needs to be talked about. Sandra Birchmore was born on May 13th, 1997 to Denise, taking her mother's late husband's name. Throughout Sandra's childhood, Denise struggled with illness, and Sandra had no relationship with her father. Sandra was raised in Stoughton, Massachusetts by her single mother with the support of her grandmother, Grace, who played a significant role in her upbringing until her death in 2001. After Grace passed away, her sister Claire stepped in to provide grandmotherly care. Denise and Sandra moved in with Claire and Gerald. 2005, Sandra Birchmore attends the Respect program at the age of 8. In 2006, Sandra attends a 14-week strengthening program for high-risk families. She was age of 23 when she died on February 1st, 2021. So it's been some time. Cause of death, asphyxiation, officially ruled a suicide, disputed by family and contradicted by civil lawsuits and forensic evidence. Alleged perpetrators, Officer Matthew Farwell, William Farwell, Robert Devine, and a former animal control officer, 𝗝𝗃𝗃𝗍𝗃. All of these men need to be put down. And you know what I mean by put down. Key investigators, Massachusetts State Police, Stoughton Police Internal Affairs, and the Mass Attorney General's Office. Legal status: federal indictment filed in August of 2024, civil suit filed in December of 2022. Sandra Birchmore deeply admired law enforcement. At just 13 years old, she joined Stoughton, Massachusetts Police Explorers Program, which was a youth mentorship initiative led by officers Robert Devine and the twin brothers, Matthew and William. So all of the men who led that program were raping her. Yeah. Not long after joining, the officers began grooming her. By age 23, Sandra was pregnant with Officer Matthew Farwell's child. Farwell, already a father of two, with a third on the way with his wife, made it clear he was unhappy about the pregnancy. Sandra confided in friends, coworkers, and family members that Farwell was the father and that he had pressured her to end the pregnancy, warning her, quote unquote, take care of it or I will. She also told others that if anything happened to her, investigators should look at Matthew. So he had threatened her. What if she was a daughter of another cop? Would that still have happened? Good question, Abby. Good question. In early February 2021, after missing several days of work, a wellness check was requested. On February 4th, Canton police officers found Sandra's body in her apartment, seated on the floor, a ligature around her neck, tied to a closet door handle. Although the medical examiner ruled her highly suspicious death a suicide, many still ask, was Sandra Birchmore really suicidal or was she silenced? Which we now know she was silenced. Okay. Let's go back. March 2010, Sandra tried to join Youth Explorers program when she was 12, but was on the standby list for the program. She began participating in the program in the spring of 2010. June 4th, 2015, Sandra graduated from high school, Stoughton High School. Tragically, in 2016, both Claire and Denise passed away, with Sandra losing her mother first and her grandmother just a month later. I feel so bad for Sandra. I would have taken her. I would have adopted her, even if I was only 20-something. I really would have. They seem to target people already in a compromised situation. Isn't that the thing, Q? They always go for the most vulnerable. They think certain people do not matter. It was definitely not a self-exit. Sandra, originally from Stoughton, moved to Canton in 2020, was discovered deceased in her Windsor apartment on February 4th, 2021, after her employer requested a well-being check due to her absence from work for several days. The last person known to have seen Sandra alive was Matthew Farwell, who was captured on camera leaving her apartment. At that time of her death, Sandra was pregnant, and it is suspected that one of the officers, Matthew, was a father. The cause of death was determined to be a suicide. Here's the story. 1998. In September, we're going back a little bit. 1998, 12-year-old twin brothers, Matthew and William Farwell, enrolled in the Police Explorers program in Stoughton, a town that promised to shape young minds towards law enforcement careers. The program was a beacon for adolescents eager to learn the ropes of police work, but the Farwell brothers brought with them a reputation of disciplinary issues that had trailed them throughout their school years. Here's the timeline. Sandra was born on May 13, 1997. Her birthday's coming up. We shall have a Sandra birthday party. Chief Manual in 2002, Chief Manual 𝗪𝗪𝗃𝗪𝗃 selected Robert Devine, who had been advising the Explorers program since at least 1999, to take full leadership of the program in 2002. In 2003, Robert had fully integrated Matthew and William Farwell into the Explorers program. According to witness testimony later unearthed through investigative reports, the Farwell brothers were frequently seen spending extended time in the middle school gym alongside Robert Devine. These interactions, while initially framed as mentoring, were later scrutinized for their inappropriateness and the dynamics they fostered. The Explorers program, once an initiative, became shadowed by questions about boundaries and oversight. The Farwell's brother journey from troubled students to influential figures within the program reflected both the potential for growth and the challenges of unchecked authority in the youth mentorship initiatives. In 2004, Matthew earns a high school equivalency diploma in Maine. He enlists in the Army and is trained as an explosives expert. Matthew Farwell's brothers transition from participants to guest instructors. Imagine that too. Imagine that. You serve for the United States of America and you're a rapist. Being sarcastic. Then you think about the other case we just saw, the cop that got her baby back. 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆. Well, she hasn't got her baby back yet, but we're working on it. 2 million people have dangerous security. Yes. Hey, Ruth, good to see you. 2005, Sandra, age 8, attends the Respect program. Matthew Farwell completed basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. He's assigned to Fort Bliss in Texas, and he's promoted to private first class. In 2006, March of 2006 to be specific, Matthew Farwell deploys to Afghanistan for 6 months, first to Bagram and then to 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆, where he joined TF, Task Force Paladin. Ugh, I don't know what that is. That word is. January 23rd, 2006, Sandra participates in a 14-week strengthening program for high-risk families. Fall of 2006, Matthew Farwell returned to Fort Bliss, Texas. He's promoted to a sergeant and selected as a team leader. 2008, Matthew Farwell medically separated from the Army due to migraines and neck pain and moves back to Massachusetts. Attended and graduated formal police academy, joined Wellesley Police Department. Then he volunteers with local youth programs and earns several commendations, including one in 2012 for performing CPR at a gym. In March of 2010, Sandra was at the age of 12. She applies to join the Youth Explorers program, but is placed on the standby list. In May of 2010, the Stoughton Police Department executed an annual memorandum of understanding with Learning for Life to operate a police explorers post. The agreement formalized SPD's participation and governance obligations for the explorers program. Matthew Farwell and William volunteer as instructors of the explorers program. And they volunteer. Hey, Madden Football, good to see you. 2011, May of 2011, Sandra becomes a member of the Explorers program. September of 2011, Matthew Farwell volunteers with the Police Explorers program. September of 2011 to June of 2012. So about a year. Farwell begins meeting with Sandra during her freshman year in high school. Sandra tells others that Farwell is helping her with homework. If an older man that age wants to help a child with homework, you got me fucked up. Like, maybe that is why I don't have kids, because I would probably be in prison. Respectfully, if someone even came near my children, I would probably be in prison. So, the universe works in mysterious ways. But he's grooming her. You see how he's volunteering. Oh, I'm a good person. I'm volunteering. And he's grooming her. And I just want to throw up every time I cover this case. But it needs to be covered. I don't know why it bothers me so much. March 19th, 2012, Sandra and her family attend orientation and sign up for the 2012 Explorers Academy held at the Stoughton Police Station. On March 27th, 2012, Matthew was hired by the Stoughton Police Department. After joining the police department, he serves as a police explorers instructor. He has several roles as an instructor, including teaching firearms and explosive safety and conducting canine demonstrations. On October 28th of 2012, Matthew sends Sandra a Facebook friend request. Damn you, Facebook. This is why I don't have a Facebook. So if you see me on Facebook, you better let me know, because someone's pretending to be me. Just don't throw up on us. I am. I really think that I might have to fly into when they have trial. I really think I'm gonna have to fly out there. I really want to, at least. I might have to, yeah, for good reason. Exactly. So Farwell engagement. After working late, quote unquote, Matt woke me up to let me know he was home as he usually does. And when he did, I felt something on my finger. While I was sleeping, he slipped the ring on my finger so it would be there when I woke up. Once I woke up crying because I saw it, he popped the question. That's him proposing to his wife, who probably now wants nothing to do with him. Ew, sick. 2013, April 10th. Matthew Farwell sexually assaulted Sandra when she was 15 years old. Sandra began using a journal describing her relationship with Matthew. Matthew reportedly began an inappropriate physical relationship with Sandra when she was 15, which is considered statutory rape under Massachusetts law. April 11th, 2013. Matthew and Michelle participated in a pre-wedding photo shoot. Michelle, the wife, we would like to know, what red flags did you choose to ignore with your so-called husband? May 4th, 2013. Matthew and Michelle were married. The wedding took place at the Omni Mount Washington Resort. September 2013, in a Facebook post, the Stoughton Police Department writes, quote unquote, smile Birchmore. Matthew Farwell had sex with Birchmore when she was a minor, starting in and around April 2013, when Birchmore was 15 and Matthew was 27. October 15th of 2013, Matthew Farwell received certified training related to firearm stimulation. April 3rd, 2014, Sandra attends the 13th Stoughton Police Explorers class. April 17th, Denise Birchmore sent a letter to Robert Devine. In the letter, Denise was extending thanks to the Stoughton Police Department and in particular Devine for running the Police Explorers program. In March of 2014, Sandra attended the Police Explorers orientation. In May of 2014, Matthew Farwell received formal narcotics investigation and training. In June of 2014, Sandra featured in the Stoughton Police Department tweet as she attends the Police Explorers program. Now we move to 2015. On June 4th, 2015, Sandra graduated from high school. That same month, shortly after graduating from Stoughton High School, Sandra began basic training for the U.S. Army Reserve, motivated by a strong sense of service and a desire to gain experience that would support her ultimate goal of becoming a police officer. Sandra saw military training as a vital step in her career path. July of 2015, Police Chief Paul Shastany placed Devine on administrative leave while an internal affairs consultant looked into the matter. August of 2015, Sandra had returned home. She told those around her that she had been discharged from the service due to asthma, a medical condition that prevented her from completing the rigorous demands of basic training. In September of 2015, Robert Devine resumed service at the patrol office rank following the agreed upon suspension period. In the fall, Sandra enrolled at the community college in Brockton to pursue an AA degree in criminal justice. May 7th, 2016, Denise Birchmore, at the age of 52, suffered a stroke. She died 2 weeks later. In June of 2016, Sandra experienced another profound tragedy, the death of her grandmother, Claire. This loss came just 1 month after the death of her mother. So she lost two important people in 2016. Oh, I didn't see it, Madden. Sorry, I was on live. She was a child manipulated in too many ways. I'm so sickened by this. I'm so sickened by this. You send your child off to think that they're participating and doing good and participating in an explorer program. Little do you know that the men there are trying to have sex with her. All three of them. Let's take it back. 2013. December 9th, 2013. On this date, the Stoughton Police Department shared a festive image on their official Facebook page featuring members of the Police Explorers Program, a community-based initiative designed to introduce young people to careers in law enforcement. The photo captured a group of teenagers standing in a brightly decorated Christmas tree, all smiling and celebrating the holiday season. Among them was 15-year-old Sandra Birchmore, whose radiant smile stood out in the group. The post was cheerful in tone and intended to highlight the department's engagement with local youth. The caption read, "Smile, Birchmore," referring to Sandra directly. At the time, she was actively involved in the Explorers program and appeared to be a well-liked, enthusiastic participant. In retrospect, the photo stands in stark contrast to the troubling revelations that would emerge later involving then Officer Matthew Farwell, a man more than a decade her senior, who was also involved in the Explorers program, abusing Sandra. Here's a picture. I keep wanting to say Sarah Boone. This is Sandra right here. 2014. On April 17th, 2014, Denise sent a letter to Robert Devine. In the letter, Denise was extending thanks to the Stoughton Police Department, and in particular, Devine, for running the Police Explorers program. On June 12th, 2014, a seemingly ordinary day in the small town of Stoughton, Massachusetts, a tweet went out from their official Twitter account of the Stoughton Police Department. The tweet read, quote unquote, "waiting for their return," accompanied by a photo of group young police officer explorers, aspiring law enforcement officers standing in line eagerly waiting for their next activity. On that fateful day in June, while the young police explorers were waiting for their turn to participate in the training exercises, Sandra was enduring another cycle of abuse by those very officers. The tweet, meant to showcase the department's commitment to nurturing future officers, was a stark contrast to the reality of what was happening behind closed doors. The abuse continued for years, hidden in plain sight, with Sandra suffering in silence. The cheerful photos and tweeted masked a grim truth, a truth that would only come to light years later when Sandra's life was lost. Sandra graduated in 2015 from Stoughton High School. On June 4th, 2015, when she graduated, proudly joining the class of 2015, the ceremony marked the culmination of her academic journey through high school, a time filled with learning, growth, and meaningful friendships. Sandra's graduation was not only a celebration of her accomplishments, but also the beginning of a new chapter as she prepared to step into adulthood and pursue her future goals. And here's a picture of her. You can tell she's young. Poor woman, I know. How do they find each other, these perverted deviants, and come to know that they can team up? Manipulation, Q. Manipulation. All the cases they participated should be reviewed. Well, I think that's what's happening, really. I want to know, yeah, I'm sure they did do it to someone else, and they have yet to come forward, or maybe we'll see it closer to trial. 2016. Denise died at the age of 52 on May 18th, 2016 at the Tufts Medical Center. This was, like we know, Sandra didn't have a good life upbringing, right? And then the people that did care for her, the two, passed, sadly. She passed after a long illness. Born in Tewkesbury, she was raised in Dorchester and Stoughton and was a graduate of Stoughton High School. Denise was a long-time resident of Stoughton. This is her mom. Sandra's mom, Denise. Let's jump to 2016. Claire. On June 24th, 2016, Sandra took the Massachusetts Civil Service exam and was placed on eligibility list for the Stoughton Police Force. Fall of 2019, Sandra met Joshua Heel when she came to the shelter to adopt a cat. They became friends and later engaged in a consensual sexual act once after working hours at the animal shelter. Sandra started to confide in him about intimate details about her life, including her relationship with the Farwell brothers and Robert Devine. According to Joshua, they engaged in a consensual sex act after working hours at the animal shelter. Joshua Heel is friends with Sandra on Facebook. On October 12th, 2019, the death of her grandmother, Claire, who had stepped in as a maternal figure after the death of Sandra's grandmother, Grace. Claire was 89, a longtime resident of Stoughton, who died unexpectedly at Brockton Hospital on Friday, June 24th. That's the other person that was caring for her. Okay, jumping to 2017. March 21st, 2017, William Farwell becomes a Stoughton police officer. Sandra began employment with JLW Donuts at a Dunkin' Donuts store. On July 14th, 2017, Sandra left work early due to an illness. She suffered a medical incident while working at Dunkin' Donuts. JLW Donuts terminated her employment. They sent her a text message saying, "You're off the schedule," in 2017. February 20th of 2018, Sandra filed a civil complaint in Norfolk Superior Court against JLW Donuts. Sandra describes alleged disability discrimination, violation of the American with Disabilities Act, negligence, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent infliction of emotional distress, retaliation, and discipline under Massachusetts earned sick time law. June 1st of 2018, Sandra graduates from the community college with associate's degree in criminal justice. June 20th, a stipulation of dismissal with prejudice was filed in Norfolk Superior Court in the case of Sandra versus JLW Donuts. Later, Sandra works as an Uber driver to support herself. 2019. September 1st, 2019, Sandra took the Massachusetts service exam and was placed on an eligibility list for the Stoughton police force. In the fall of 2019, Sandra meets Joshua when she came to the shelter to adopt a cat. We just read about him. They had a consensual relationship. October 12th, 2019, Sandra loses her favorite aunt, Alice. Now let's jump to April 10th, 2020. Matthew Farwell texts Sandra, quote unquote, "I'm going to sneak away from work." It is part of an alleged pattern where Farwell would shrink his police duties while on the clock to meet up with Birchmore. He was on the clock while raping the child. I can't get it. I can't get it. I can't understand it. I can't comprehend it. May 19th, 2020. The police were called to Sandra's home for a well-being check. A dispatcher informed the officers that Sandra was expressing a desire to harm herself, according to police radio call recordings. According to the police records and the information disclosed by a friend, on that day, Sandra had gotten into a fight with a family member who called the police and reported that Sandra was going to harm herself. The police took Sandra to the hospital where she was evaluated and deemed not at risk for self-harm. She was released a few hours later on May 24th, 2020. An ambulance was called to Sandra's home again. This time, she was found unconscious and possibly experiencing anxiety. She was then transported to a hospital in Brockton. In September of 2020, Sandra applied for housing and secured her own place. October of 2020, Sandra begins working at the East Elementary School in Sharon, Massachusetts. She moves out of her aunt's residence after learning the home was being sold, and she is described very upset about having to leave. She initially stays with a friend. She later moves into her own apartment. According to the maintenance worker, Matthew Farwell assisted Birchmore in obtaining the apartment. Yeah. Hi, Pink. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Makes me think of very dark and hateful things. They better charge them with fraud as well. You know what? I don't understand why these people in power raping children, I don't understand why they just don't qualify for death penalty. I think every PDF file should get the death penalty. I don't know. I'm not God. I shall not judge, but that's just my opinion. October 5th of 2020, Joshua Heel, the man from the animal shelter, informs Sandra that Matthew's wife is pregnant with the couple's third child. He tells her the baby is expected to be born in February of 2021. Sandra states she intends to tell Matthew's wife that he has been having sex with her for nearly 10 years. Yes, I will, Adrian. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being the wife and finding out that your husband who you have kids with and are having a baby with, he has been having sex with a child for the last 10 years? That same day, Sandra drafts a message to Matthew's wife. She sends a copy of the drafted message to Joshua Heel. Quote unquote, I am just this is what the message said. I am just messaging to inform you that your husband Matthew has been cheating on you since before you guys were even married. Wow. Wait, today's your birthday, 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆? Is it today? Happy birthday. No, I mean the day she said was my Oh, okay. I was gonna say we should have a party tonight. October 12th, 2020. Sandra presents Matthew Farwell with an ultimatum regarding their relationship. According to court records, Sandra tells Matthew he must agree to engage in unprotected sex with the goal of conceiving a child. In return, she states she will not disclose the relationship. At that time, Sandra had already disclosed to others that Farwell had been having sex with her since before she was 16 years old. She was aware that this conduct constituted a criminal offense. Sandra knew Farwell had been leaving work early on duty as a Stoughton police officer to meet her for sexual encounters. For 10 years. So I don't think that he was in love with Sandra, but like 10 years of raping and grooming. I don't know. The record indicates, okay, yeah, I already read that part. October 14th, 2020. Sandra asked if Matthew would like a copy of the key. Matthew told her he did not think it was a good idea for him to keep a key to her new Canton apartment. November 3rd, 2020. Sandra asks Matthew if they could try again that month or whether they would need to talk in person about that. Farwell responds, that's an in-person discussion. November 5th of 2020, Sandra asked Farwell if he had given any more thought to the prior conversation and told him that she thought of a way they could both be happy. Sandra says, how would you feel about us having a baby and you being there and signing the birth certificate? There's never going to be a need for your information anyway, so you'll be safe there and I won't talk shit about her or your kids. That way, we both get what we want. You asked me the other day what I wanted, and I didn't want to give it to you in the form of an ultimatum. So I'm trying to do it with you as a compromise type of thing. Can you tell me what you thought of? I'm down for discussing it in person, but the more I thought about it, you signing really isn't going to have an impact on you because of the way things are going to fall in the future. Matthew Farwell responds with, okay, that's an in-person discussion. On November 18th, 2020, in which they discussed an upcoming sexual encounter. Farwell says, I'm going to try for tonight. I've been in interviews all day from the murder. Sorry. Birchmore says, exciting. Okay, I'm running to the store and doing something for you then. I hope you can come. Matthew Farwell responds with, what are you doing for me? Sandra says, LOL, shaving. And she says, are you planning on rolling me over? I need to know what you want if you come. Matthew says, if you want me to roll you. Redacted. Would you want me to use a condom if I roll you? Sandra says, I don't have any. LOL, I never picked any up. Do you want me to just take what you do or try and say no? I know being told no is your favorite. Matthew Farwell says, say no. Sandra says, I can do that. Approximately 21 minutes after the foregoing text messages, Matthew told Sandra that he was at her apartment and his subsequent text messages indicate that she let him into her apartment. Approximately 25 minutes later, Sandra asked Matthew via text message whether he enjoyed having vaginal sex with her again, and he responded, yeah. I know, this is so disturbing. I know, it's disturbing. Hey, 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆, good to see you. That's disgusting. 10 years. You tell me, Madden. Bruh. Yo. I know. I'm losing my shit here. November 24th, 2020. Sandra asked Farwell if he would be on duty when the two are scheduled to meet. Farwell responds by texting her, yes, I will be on the clock. November 27th, 2020. Sandra spoke with Robert Devine, aka Marty Riggs, via Facebook Messenger. December 21st. Sandra spoke via Facebook Messenger with Robert, who was on duty for the Stoughton Police Department. He requested Sandra to meet him at the Chateau restaurant. When Robert arrived, he sent Sandra another message asking where she was. She indicated she was on the way. December 28th, 2020. Sandra sends Matthew a text message informing him that she was pregnant. She sent him a photo of a poster she made to celebrate the pregnancy. The next day, on December 29th, Matthew was at Sandra's apartment. Sandra mentioned to a friend that she had talked to Matthew about the pregnancy a few days before Christmas. They had an argument and she asked him to leave the apartment. But before he left, Sandra said that Matthew told her, quote unquote, I wish you would kill yourself. Sandra texted this to her friend. It made me really uncomfortable and stressed out and scared when you were next to me because, oh wait, this is what she said to Matthew. Sorry, not her friend. It made me really uncomfortable and stressed out and scared when you were next to me because I thought you were going to hit me after you said what you said and took things out of my hand. That is why I was crying. I know you wouldn't, but it still scared me. December 30th, 2020. Sandra visited a hair salon to prepare for a New Year's Eve celebration. Here's two pictures of Sandra as well. My glasses are steaming up. I know, Pink. I know. It's terrible. Look how cute she is. Okay. January 3rd, 2021. So where did we leave off? December. Sandra asked Matthew Farwell if their child could have his last name. However, he told her he would not discuss that issue via text message. That's crazy. January 4th, 2021. Sandra told Matthew that she was going to the doctor the next day and asked if he wanted to know how the appointment went. Farwell did not directly respond to that question. January 5th, 2021. Sandra asked Matthew to come over so they could discuss her estimated due date, the week of her first ultrasound, and her conversation with her doctor and her first appointment. Farwell did not respond directly to that request. January 6th, Sandra begins to ask Matthew what their family would look like. And this is the text exchange. Sandra says, you don't have to sign the birth certificate if I'm allowed to at least list you and they can have your name and I won't move to Stoughton. Or I won't bitch about holidays, but I would like you to come a few days before Christmas and Easter so you can see what they get from me and I don't want you to leave them out. And if you want to try and support them, we can talk about that. But I do want you to see them. I feel like I'm trying to be as fair as I can, and I want you there for the labor. That I'm standing my ground on. Farwell says, okay, we can discuss this more in person. Sandra says, okay, I figured. Does it sound okay to you? Matthew says, it's a lot to think about. It's much more than you have ever asked for. Sandra says, and still less than what any other girl would ask for. That's wild. It's a combination of at-risk youth who are primed to want to do anything to please a person in authority who's paying them attention and time, and PDFs who are handed vulnerable kids. I know. That's what makes me sad. She didn't know, like she had no one to teach her that your teacher isn't supposed to have sex with you and that cops aren't supposed to have sex with you when you're 12. Big mistakes these women make. Sadly, that's when shit hits the fan. I know. Okay. January 8th, 2021. Sandra meets with Matthew at her apartment to discuss the pregnancy, and they ended up arguing. Matthew pushed her and shoved her and put her in a chokehold, and Sandra kicked him out of the apartment. On January 9th, the next day, Sandra called Joshua Heel, remember the animal shelter hookup, that stated that after telling Matthew about the baby, Matthew Farwell told her that he wished she would just die and he wants nothing to do with the baby. According to the information that Sandra shared, Matthew put Sandra in a headlock and grabbed her cell phone from her hand. Joshua Heel told Sandra to distance herself from Matthew, given that he was dangerous, a police officer, and obviously did not care about the law. However, Matthew was also aware that Sandra appeared to be attached to Matthew because he'd taken her virginity when she was just 15 years old. Oh, my bad, 15. No one was there to protect her. Exactly, 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆𝗵𝗽. Sandra should have been able to trust a police officer of all people. I know. January 10th, 2021, Sandra met with William, the brother. Okay, so don't get confused here. Matthew's the one who got her pregnant, and now she's meeting with the twin brother, William. Sandra meets with William in the parking lot of her apartment building after midnight on January 10th, 2021. Sandra spoke with her friend about money she promised to pay back a few months before. After receiving no response from Sandra, her friend got irritated and asked Sandra why she only stopped responding when she requested that Sandra pay her back. January 20th, 2021. Sandra's friend is angry with Sandra because Sandra had owed her money for a couple of months. She called the Stoughton police and informed them about the monetary dispute and was advised that it was a civil matter. She became upset and responded to the officer on the phone by insinuating that the Stoughton police officer or detective, Matthew Farwell, is engaged in a sexual relationship with Sandra and should tell her to pay back money when she owes. So the friend called the police department to not to snitch her out, but she's mad about the money and they tell her it's a civil matter. And she's like, oh, well, your officer, probably whoop-de-doo. Later that day, Matthew sends Sandra a text message revealing his extreme anger. He sent her a series of text messages with expletives telling Sandra that he thought no one knew about their relationship and that she had no clue how bad this was, indicating that he does not know if he needs to worry about other disclosures. So he's basically like, you told your friends about me? Like now he's like, ooh, I'm in trouble. Matthew is nasty. He belongs 6 feet down in the ground, if you know what I mean. No, you can't. You cannot trust the police. That is also true, Maddie. That is also true. Yeah, I know. But imagine that. Imagine that. We live in a world where you can't even trust the police. It's sick, guys. It's sick. Okay, so he texts her and he's like, what the fuck? Like, you told people about me? Like, I've been graping you. You told people about me. I mean, those weren't the words, but you know what I mean? I'm being sarcastic here, which is not funny. It's sick. But he was basically like, okay, people know about me. Hey, Shay. This is how the text messages went. Matthew says, dude, your fucking friend called my job, Sandra. WTF? Sandra says, question mark. Matthew responds with, your friend just called my fucking work to complain about me. WTF? Sandra says, I don't know. Matthew says, what do you mean you don't know? Sandra says, I literally just woke up. Matthew says, did you steal from her? Sandra says, nope. Matthew says, what is going on? You also told me that no one knew about us yet. She claimed we were fucking. Sandra says, it's literally nothing. Matthew says, it's not nothing. She called my job. That's insane. Why would she call and drop my effing name, Sandra? Like, what do I have to do with you not giving her something? Like, you have no idea how bad what she did is. I literally can't believe this is even real life. Like, what else do I have to worry about now? Which other friend will do something tomorrow? Well, Matthew, you shouldn't have been raping a child. How about that? Does that sound reasonable? You sick F? Sorry, I get a little angry with this case, so don't mind me over here. Okay. January 21st. So the next day, Sandra calls her friend and told her that she didn't respond to her because she had hit her head on the car door and then again on the pavement and had to go to the hospital. On January 22nd, Sandra had an ultrasound. On January 23rd, Sandra and a friend went to Walmart to buy a baby stroller for Sandra's future child. Sandra was excited about the baby and asked her to be the child's godmother. In the conversation, Sandra told her the day prior that Matthew had gotten angry with her for showing him a fetal sonogram. And he said, quote unquote, "That's not my child. I don't want anything really to do with you." And then Matthew pushed her to the ground. Yeah. This is sick. Are you guys throwing up? January 24th, 2021. Matthew requests a key for Sandra's apartment, in which Sandra gave him the passcode to her building's front door and told him, quote unquote, "I have your key too when you want it." Sandra just longed for a family life. She was wanting to get pregnant and have a baby with this man she thought that loved her because he had been raping her and grooming her for 10 years. You know, like she came from a bad childhood. And that's when predators take advantage of the situation. Anger. I know. I think me and Cree might have to go to this trial. And then maybe you guys can bail us out after we jump over the stand. Please. I'll pay you back. Okay. So Matthew requests a key for Sandra's apartment. She says, "I have a key for you." Like, she's like, "Yeah, I'll make you a key. Like, you're my boo." You know, she's thinking like, yeah, which I wouldn't have done. But Sandra paid $2 to have a key copied at 11:10 a.m. And Sandra indicated that she was surprised that Farwell had a sudden change about the pregnancy. So this whole thing about her shopping for the baby stroller is important, and it's going to play a role in the trial because it proves that Sandra wasn't trying to kill herself. She wasn't trying to kill herself when she was pregnant, like the Farwells had said, you know, like that she was suicidal or whatever else, that she was suicidal. No, she wasn't. She was planning to have her baby. She was excited. She was going to have a baby shower. She was buying baby clothes. The day she got murdered, she was having a delivery of, I believe, Amazon baby clothes. So she wasn't suicidal. Here's the text message strand. Matthew was requesting a key to her apartment. The friend says, "Did it go good with him?" So Sandra's texting her friend. The friend says, "Did it go good with him?" Sandra says, "I got hit with a shocker question. Can I call you?" What really went well, I think she meant what went well. Surprisingly, he asked if he could have a key, and I basically said he'll be around as long as I keep it a secret and don't tell anybody. But he did admit that I do have the upper hand in the situation, which isn't a good thing. But I'm trying to and not be the person, if you know what I mean. Her friend says, "I get it. Are you going to give him a key?" Sandra says, "I just made a copy of it." Yeah. The friend said, "That's good." Sandra says, "I'm not going to give it to him yet, but he also brought me a ginger ale last night like I asked him to." Her friend says, "He's coming around." Sandra says, "A lot more than I thought he was going to. Yes, I still have to verify the PIN for him to get into the apartment if he rings me and I don't answer. But like last night, he opened my closet door for something and then he went in my bathroom, looking at my bathroom. Then I have a dolly in my living room and he asked why I had it. It was just really odd, really odd. He started to look around. I don't know." The friend says, "That's weird." Sandra says, "Yeah, it was really weird." So I believe in that time, Matthew was looking around and was premeditating how he was going to kill her in that apartment. Yes, GoFundMe now for bond money for Melly and Cree, the real families. Yeah, the vulnerable are prey, pink, and this is so true. It's so absolutely true. Okay, January 29th, 2021. Matthew asks Sandra if the code was a general one given to the entire building, not just one assigned to her. This is when he's like starting to, I think, question things because he knows he's going to do something. January 30th, 2021. Sandra asks Matthew if she can tell him some of the baby names that she is considering. Matthew says he would rather discuss that in person. January 31st, 2021. Sandra sees her therapist. During this session, she was screened for depression and suicidal ideation, and the therapist concluded no signs of depression or suicidal ideation. At 11:57 a.m., Sandra spoke with Daniel J. At 7:16 p.m., Sandra called Daniel. Next day, February 1st, 2021. Birchmore, Sandra, sends Matthew text messages indicating that she was going to be released early at 12:35 p.m. from her job at the Sharon Public Schools. Matthew told her that he would not be in the area that day. School is released early, and once Sandra is home, she orders baby items. She used her computer. Sandra had been taking classes in preparation for applying to nursing school. She planned for newborn baby photos, an official pregnancy announcement, which she planned to do on Valentine's Day, as well as a gender reveal. She also made plans for her more immediate future, scheduling an OBGYN appointment for February 10th, 2021, has a load of wet clothes in the washing machine and another load in the dryer. So this is critical right here because it proves again, she didn't try to kill herself. She had things going on, Valentine's Day, announcement, gender reveal. She was doing laundry. Things were moving a go, right? Like she wasn't just like, okay, I need to not do anything and take my own life. 1:31 p.m. She books a newborn photography shoot. At 5:01 p.m., and this is still on the same day, February 1st. 5:01 p.m., Sandra receives a DoorDash order and she goes outside to get it. She waits outside with a snow brush. Sandra returns with the snow brush, and it's the last time Sandra is seen alive on video on February 1st, 2021 at 5:33 p.m. At 7:57 p.m., Sandra texted a friend to obtain baby clothes from her. 8:25 p.m., Sandra performed a Google search for Cubby Kids furniture. Sandra was doing laundry. She the key Matthew Farwell phone. I don't know what that means. 9:00 p.m. Sandra spoke with a coworker asking to help shovel out her car during the impending snowstorm. That evening, she sent a message via Snapchat to inquire about her work schedule. At 9:08 p.m., Matthew sent Sandra a text message asking whether he could quote unquote come by for a second. 9:10 p.m., Sandra sends Matthew a text message indicating that when he arrived at the apartment, the door would be open for him. This is the last known outgoing message from Sandra's cell phone. So she's last seen on camera surveillance at 5 something. And then 9:00, that's the last time she has any communication. Sandra sent her final text message to Matthew stating that the door was unlocked at 9:13 p.m. At 9:14 p.m., Matthew is seen entering her apartment building. At 9:28 p.m., so 14 minutes later, Sandra's coworker replied to her Snapchat at 9:28, but Sandra no longer opened the message. At 9:43 p.m., Matthew is seen exiting Sandra's lobby. Yeah. So surveillance footage of Sandra Birchmore's apartment complex shows the last time she was seen alive, and the last person to see her alive was Matthew entering and leaving the building on February 1st, 2021. Surveillance footage of Sandra's apartment complex. Okay, I already read that. Weeks before Matthew Farwell arrived at Sandra's apartment, he instructed her to delete evidence of their sexual relationship, which included proof that he had raped her when she was 15 and had repeatedly engaged in sexual violence against her. I know. Aren't you guys so mad? Let's play this 1-minute video. This is when she is seen going down to get the snow out of her car, and then you see Farwell. Oh my god, these videos piss me off. Sorry, guys. Excuse my French. But really, like, I can't even deal. It's like between 5 and 9, it's a critical time. Yeah, they did. He has trial in October. He did it. It's rare that I'm left with no words for real. Girl, it's crazy. Okay, this is a video. So she goes out to move snow out of her car, you know, the windshield, et cetera, and then she comes back. This is what this video is showing you. So you see her coming back. Please do get another one, Evie. Look at this. And then you see him show up. Oh my god. That's after he, like, killed her. Are you guys shook? Are you shook? Yeah, there is. So I'll show the video again of Farwell. Let's read this passage. Matthew told troopers he visited Sandra's apartment on the evening of February 1st, 2021, telling her that he wasn't the father of the baby the records show. Sandra was upset. Sandra told the troopers but didn't make any suicidal statements. Quote unquote, Matt said he was straightforward in his conversation with her and told her that it was all over and he was blocking her for all forms of communication. Surveillance footage from the Birchmore apartment complex showed that Matthew entering her apartment building and then exiting 28 minutes later. So 28 minutes, he killed her, set it up to look like she unalived herself. Let's watch that video again. It's too good. Under the prison. Say that again. He looks hella suspicious. Yeah, he does. There's no sound either. I get so pissed off at this case. I really do. I think he has to be charged for killing the baby, right? Unborn fetus. He comes in with a mask. 28 minutes later. Bye. Thank goodness they were out. Yes, without this footage, because at first they declared it suicide. It wasn't until later. Exactly, 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆. Wasn't until later people like us who care about Sandra Birchmore, who want to be her voice. And that's us here. Just like we did for 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆. We want to support Sandra and make sure she gets justice. Okay, so on February 1st at 9:08 p.m., Matthew texted Sandra to inform her that he was on his way to her apartment despite being known for resisting COVID-19 mask mandates. He entered her apartment wearing a face mask. Once inside, Matthew murdered Sandra, the 23-year-old pregnant woman who he had exploited for years by strangling her to death. Surveillance footage captured him leaving her apartment just minutes after committing the crime. Um, okay. So let's learn a little bit about Matthew. February 1st, 2020. After leaving Sandra, Matthew, so now we're going back, okay? Don't get confused here. So 2021. After leaving Sandra, Matthew drove to Newton Wesley Hospital, situated in a wealthy suburb 12 miles out of Boston. It was at the hospital on February 2nd, 2021 at 9:25 a.m. that Michelle, his wife, gave birth to their son. So, you guys, are you catching on? He went and murdered her, and then he had a baby the next day. What? Look at him with this baby. You don't think his wife is thinking, "Get away from my baby?" Dude, I'm sorry. Husband or not, you're done. You're out. Like, that's crazy. Yeah. He murdered Sandra, went to bed for 9 hours, and then had a baby the next morning, whatever, however many hours it was. February 9:25 a.m. Oh, there we go. 9:25 a.m. So he leaves Sandra Birchmore's apartment at 9:43. So whatever 9:43 p.m. to 9:25, what is that, like 12 hours or some shit? Yeah, he's a scum. I know, badass. I know. Don't you just want to beat his ass? Um, yeah. So 9:25 a.m. on the morning of February 2nd, 2021 at 9:25 a.m., Michelle gave birth to a baby boy at the Newton Wellesley Hospital, a well-regarded medical center located in a suburb about 12 miles outside of Boston. Her husband, the rapist, the pig, Matthew Farwell, was by her side for the birth of their son, an event that would typically mark a joyful, intimate moment in the family's life. But that morning came under a cloud of growing concern. Just hours earlier, on February 1st, surveillance cameras had captured Matthew entering the apartment of Sandra. Okay. So now we're going to go to the wellness check. So he goes and he kills her, goes and has a baby, pretends like he's blessed to have a baby. Um, a request for a wellness check on Sandra led to the tragic discovery of her body in Canton, Mass on February 4th, 2021. So at 10 a.m., Sandra fails to show up for work. So that's when, her colleagues call the police. 10 a.m. School's officials contact the school resource officer to check on Sandra, who had missed a few days of work. Officers Cotard, Brady, and Yeaton respond to her apartment to make contact with Sandra. When they arrived, no one answered the door. At 10:45 a.m., while assisting SRO Brady, officers spoke with the Canton Woods property manager, Aaron Porter, and confirmed that Sandra resided in the apartment number 3307. Miss Porter stated she had not seen or heard from Sandra in several days. She also mentioned that another resident had expressed concern regarding Sandra's absence. At an officer's request, Miss Porter attempted to contact Sandra under the phone number on file, but was unsuccessful. Both calls went directly to voicemail. Officers advised Ms. Porter that they would attempt to make contact with Sandra at her apartment directly. At 11 a.m., Sandra's vehicle was in the apartment complex parking lot, covered in snow, and had not been moved since the snowfall on Monday, February 1st. Property manager who provided a key to access the apartment. 11:46 a.m. The officers found Sandra in the bedroom, deceased, with a black strap around her neck tied to the bedroom closet door. Sandra was 10 weeks pregnant. The cause of death was determined to be a suicide. At 12:44 p.m., within an hour of the officers responding, local law enforcement notified the medical examiner that there's no foul play at the time of the report. And this right here is where the cops become dirty cops. This is it right here. How can a real man do that? It's unhinged. I know. I know it is unhinged. 𝗵𝗆's official accepted jurisdiction case assigned to Zach Clark from Crime Scene Services documented that the victim and the scene with digital photographs. The victim was transported to the office of the chief medical examiner. The manner of death are pending further study. At 7:03 p.m., the state investigators submit a report labeling the case, quote unquote, Birchmore/suicide/Canton. That report notes antidepressant medications at the scene, but omits other critical factors later identified by federal prosecutors. So I'm going to give you guys like a sneak peek into tomorrow's life. So the documents just got released this past week and we're going to read through it. It's like an 18-page document. They ended up finding his DNA on the belt, which he strangled her with. So years later, now they have the proof that he actually did it, which is crazy. So we'll be reading that. I don't know if I'll get to it today, but if not, probably tomorrow. Okay. So let's go back to the crime scene. So at 11 a.m., the Canton officers were dispatched to conduct a wellness. Okay, we know that. Responding officers include Patrolman Charles Eaton, Officer Ensley Cotard, and Officer Mike Brady. Property manager Aaron Porter provided officers with a key to enter the apartment. Upon entry, officers found Sandra Birchmore seated on the bedroom floor with a scarf or strap around her neck, secured to the bedroom closet door handle. The officers observed lividity and discoloration, indicating she had been deceased for an extended period. So Matthew made it seem like she hung herself. How are you going to hang yourself from the doorknob sitting upright? 11:09 a.m. Canton police. Oh, wait. Sergeant Michael Lank. If this name sounds familiar, it's because he was involved in the Karen Reed case. Sergeant Michael Lank, the shift supervisor, responded to the scene, ordered the scene secured, and notified Norfolk County District Attorney Office, Norfolk County. Again, if you know about Karen Reed and Kelsey Fitzsimmons, Ellen Greenberg, and now Sandra Birchmore, this district attorney's office need to be taken down completely, revamped, get new people. They're all corrupt. If you weren't present for the Karen Reed case, that might be a little bit confusing, but it's all corrupt. 11:09. Canton Police Detective Jonathan McCourt responded to the apartment for the well-being check. He was informed by first responding officers that Sandra was deceased, and it appeared she hung herself. He observed Sandra in a seated position with a dark-colored strap tied to the bedroom closet door handle. He observed no visible trauma or defensive abrasions on her hands. 11:46 a.m. Canton firefighter and paramedic Daniel Whitley arrive on the scene and they pronounce Sandra deceased. No life-saving measures were taken. Shortly after the initial response, Massachusetts State Police and 𝗝PHC response. Trooper Michael Dunn, assigned to the 𝗝PHC, respond to the scene. Trooper Zach Clark, Massachusetts State Police Crime Services, responded to process and photograph the scene. An additional MSP personnel arrived from 𝗝PHC. A supplemental narrative later identified Trooper Matt Dunn and Trooper Kevin Tufts as the 𝗝PHC responders. Mass State Police Crime Scene Services personnel processed and documented the apartment. At 12:44 p.m., the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner was contacted. An OCME intake specialist, Mercedes Robinson, accepted jurisdiction over the death. The case was assigned as OCME case number 2021-2032. And here are the details of the scene. The police report states that when the officers entered Sandra's apartment on February 4th, 2021, they found a living space in disarray. I don't know if I believe that. The small apartment was cluttered and unkempt, and the two cats roamed inside. The bedroom door was closed, and upon opening it, the officers noted a desk lamp and a colored Christmas lights glowing softly around the window, both still turned on. The bed was unmade, consisting of a simple sheet over a mattress and exposed a box spring. On the bed, the officers found Sandra's glasses, and scattered nearby was a U.S. Army ACU pattern duffel bag, a subtle reminder of her brief military experience. The most harrowing discovery lay on the floor of the bedroom, where Sandra was found seated, lifeless, with a scarf or strap tightly affixed around her neck. Accounts from the first responders varied. Some referred to it as a scarf, others as a strap, but all agreed it was secured to the bedroom closet door handle. There was no visible signs of trauma to her head, nor were there defensive injuries on her hands. Do note, however, that Officer 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆𝗆 noted a large pool of dried blood around her mouth. The blue skin discoloration and lividity suggested that Sandra had been deceased for a prolonged period before her discovery. Her cell phone was found on the floor, about 12 inches from her right hand and 6 inches from her bent knee. She was wearing the same clothing she had been seen wearing on surveillance video when she entered the apartment on February 1st at 5:33 p.m., which is a video that we saw in the apartment complex. State Police Trooper Matthew Dunn documented that there was no signs of physical abuse, no bruising, swelling, or external trauma that might suggest a struggle. Members of the medical examiner's office, Chris Adams and Caitlin Bulger, took custody of her body. As part of the investigation, hair and fingernail clippings, clothing, and swabs from her body were collected for a sexual assault kit. Zach Clark, number 4097 from the Crime Scene Services, documented the victim and the scene with digital photographs. The victim was transported to the office of the chief medical examiner to find out her manner of death. Later, a toxicology report confirmed the presence of sertraline, which is a commonly prescribed antidepressant. Sertraline is Zoloft. Abuelita. Devices. Sandra Birchmore's phone and health data activity. Sandra's phone was locked after she sent a final text message to Matthew stating that the door was unlocked on February 1st, 9:13 p.m. Sandra's cell phone was found on the floor, like I said, approximately 12 inches from her right hand and 6 inches from her bent right knee. She was wearing the same clothing on the surveillance footage at this exact moment. He by Matthew is later seen leaving the building at approximately 9:43 p.m. Post 9:40 p.m., no further activity. No additional movement or steps was recorded by Sandra's phone after 9:40 p.m. The phone remained inactive until it was recovered by first responders. These recorded steps occurred while Matthew was still in Sandra's apartment. The phone recorded no addition p.m. and the time it was recovered by first responders on February 4th. It occurred just minutes before Matthew exited the apartment building. So he set up the scene. He put her phone next to her. Yeah. Wow. They need a whole new force. That's right, badass. Sandra's family members found a significant detail that was overlooked in the initial reports. A broken necklace on the bedroom floor. It was a thin gold chain with a pink flamingo charm, a piece known to belong to Sandra. The chain was broken, not at the clasp, and had a large clump of hair tangled in it. Crime scene photos showed that the necklace was still inside the apartment, and blue skin discoloration indicated she had been deceased for an extended period of time. So here's a picture of her apartment in February of 2021. Sandra in the elevator, Matthew in the elevator, and then him having his baby. Like, he didn't just kill someone. Can you imagine the dark energy he's bestowing upon this newborn baby? Imagine a newborn baby just is coming to life, just joined Earth. And here comes this demon with that energy holding that baby. Thank you, Evie. Evie just gifted 5 memberships. Yay! Who got him? StreamYard sucks. Thank you, Babelet. I appreciate you so much. StreamYard's always delayed. They need to get their shit together. I'm trying to see. Oh, yay. Calissa Gats got a membership. She deserves it. Polyester Jumps, 99 Pink Balloons, Alex, and Jacqueline. Thank you, Evie, for gifting 5 memberships. That is so sweet. Evie's the best. Love you too, Babelet. Hi, Abuelita. They didn't do their job. No, they didn't. And they were trying to hide it. They were trying to hide that there was a police officer involved. Okay. So let's go to the investigation. I think this is the last part of the timeline. So February 6th. So she was killed on February 1st and her body was found on February 4th. 3:10 p.m. State police interview Matthew Farwell. The police interview Matthew Farwell in the parking lot of the elementary school. Matthew admits to a sexual relationship with Sandra, but falsely claims it began in 2020. He denies paternity of her unborn child, stating last intercourse was in October of 2020, which records contradict because text messages prove he visited her on January 29th, 2021. Matthew claims he hadn't seen her for a week before her death, except for February 1st, 2021 visit. Matthew claims that Sandra had been sectioned several times. Records show she was only hospitalized once in May 2020 after a family argument, evaluated and released that same day. So he's already trying to say like, oh, she has issues. She has issues. She's crazy. She went to the hospital like 5150 is basically what he tried to do. Sandra's mother's cousin last saw Sandra in person approximately 2 weeks before her death when they spoke about her pregnancy. They believe the baby's father had a key to Sandra's apartment. Sandra was not open to adoption and did not name the father. They said that Sandra had babysat for the man's children, possibly recently, and they could not obtain many details about the relationship. The detectives that interviewed Sandra's friend recalled having a breakfast. The friend says, recalled having a breakfast and a long conversation with Sandra. They confirmed that Sandra's history in law enforcement related to the youth program. Respect program at age 8, junior officer at age 13. The friend stated that Sandra began a relationship with Matthew at the age of 15. They claimed that Billy, so remember William, remember there's two monstrous brothers, Matthew Farwell, and then the twin brother, William. And they were both having sex and grooming Sandra Birchmore. So William Farwell told Matthew's wife about the affair. Sandra said that Matthew's wife confronted him, but he denied it. Sandra told his friend she was pressuring Matthew to sign the birth certificate. In an interview with the friend that knew Sandra since they were 7 or 8 years old, from a mother-child bonding program, and they later played volleyball together. They reconnected in the summer of 2020. Sandra had asked if she could move in, citing issues with her aunt selling their shared home and concern over pet care. Around December 12th of 2020, Sandra said she was pregnant and that the father was a married Stoughton detective whom she did not name. She claimed that he had planned to divorce his wife but couldn't due to COVID-19. Sandra said she told him about the pregnancy just after Christmas, and he reacted negatively. Sandra said he told her, quote unquote, I wish you would kill yourself, or quote unquote, I wish you were dead. Sandra wanted the father's last name on the birth certificate and for him to be present in the delivery room. She said, quote unquote, and if he could be in the delivery room with his wife, then he can be there for me. Hello, Richie. Sicko family. I know, Ruth. I'm surprised Matthew didn't try to delete her text or her phone. I think he did at some point. It's so dark. January 8th, 2021, Sandra had a second argument with Matthew. The friend had loaned Sandra money, and that's when she asked for repayment. Remember the friend who called his work. On January 16, 2021, Sandra promised to send 150 but did not follow through. Sandra later claimed she was hospitalized after hitting her head on the car door and pavement. On January 20th, this friend called the Stoughton police to report the debt. She was told the matter was civil. She then mentioned Birchmore was involved with an officer. Now, whether she did that out of spite or not, it did open the investigation, I think, a little bit more. Shortly after, Sandra called her and apparently was aware of the report. I don't think William is in jail. I know Matthew is in jail, but I don't think William. No, he is not in custody. It's only Matthew, which I don't know why he's not. So, interviews with the ex-wife of Sandra's mother's cousin. Sandra was distressed over her aunt selling the house and said the pregnancy would be an uphill battle. She said the father was a detective who, with two kids and a pregnant wife due in February. She noted that both the father and Sandra's mother were twins and they discussed the possibility of twins. After an ultrasound, Sandra confirmed it was a single pregnancy. Sandra expressed strong desire for the father's involvement, but did not want his wife to find out. They also discussed a daycare, a baby shower, and parenting plans. In January of 2021, Sandra told her she was pregnant, but said the father was a close friend. On January 22nd, Sandra claimed she had undergone multiple ultrasounds. Sandra also shared drama involving the Stoughton Police Department, specifically claiming the chief was mistreating a police officer. At 10:58 a.m., interview with Daniel J. Last spoke with Sandra on January 31st, received a missed call at 7:16 p.m. that evening. Daniel met Birchmore in late of 2020 while they were both taking classes at the community college. He spoke with her almost daily. Sandra claimed she was about 12 weeks pregnant and planned to announce it publicly on February 14th. She also said she was upset that the baby's father wanted more children with his wife, but not with her. It is reported that while the father had raised his voice, she was unaware of any physical abuse. Sandra also mentioned a court case involving a car crash. So the detectives interviewed Sandra's mother's cousin, who last saw Sandra in person approximately 2 weeks before her death when they spoke about her pregnancy, believed the baby's father had a key to Sandra's apartment. Sandra was not open to adoption and did not name the father, said that Sandra had babysat for the man's children, possibly recently, could not obtain many details about the relationship. Detectives interviewed Sandra's friend, who recalled having breakfast and a long conversation with Sandra. They end up interviewing another friend who says that she knew Sandra from 7 or 8 years old from a mother-child bonding program, and they let her play volleyball together. They reconnected in the summer of 2020. Sandra had asked if she could move in, citing issues with her aunt selling their home. On December 12th, 2020, Sandra said she was pregnant and that the father was a Stoughton detective whom she did not name. February 8th, Holmes authored the Internal Affairs Report Header Memorandum. Holmes included that report. I think Holmes is another detective, if I'm not mistaken. Holmes documented the report would later be completed and submitted August 29th, 2022. Holmes noted an understanding with the MSP that if evidence of criminal culpability involving anyone connected to this case were discovered, it would be referred to MSP. Holmes stated that Chief McNamara received weekly updates pursuant to the department policy. Holmes stated that there was an early decision not to disclose certain allegations to identified employees to avoid jeopardizing the investigation. On February 9th, there was an interview with her childhood friend, knew Sandra for 17 years, reconnected a month earlier via FaceTime after 2 years of no contact. Sandra said she was pregnant, but unsure of the father. Sandra admitted to sleeping with the twin brothers, one or both of whom she claimed were officers. 2:00 p.m., the detectives meet with Matthew Farwell at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office in Canton. From Farwell's cell phone, after retaining his personal phone for 3 days, Farwell declines consent for a full search of the device. He later consents only to a limited search of messages between him and Sandra. Farwell says he had already deleted those messages after breaking up with Sandra on February 1st. So thank you, Richie. I just saw that. Sorry, I was reading. Oh, Madden gave me 5. This is the first 48 show of YouTube. Thank you, Madden. And then Richie. Sorry, I was a little bit behind. Thank you for the super. I appreciate you guys very much. Helps the channel. You guys are the best. So February 11th. So he said that he broke up with her the day that he killed her, is what he said. February 11th, 2021. So this was after the death. 4:05 p.m. interview with William Farwell, which is Matthew's brother. So they're twins, remember? William stated that he met Sandra 10 years earlier through the Police Explorers program where he was a guest instructor. In 2018, while working a paid detail, Sandra approached him to talk about joining the Army. He referred her to Jason Thomas, Pickard Army recruiter, and they began talking regularly. He admitted to having a relationship with Sandra spanning roughly 2 years. I can't imagine two brothers being with the same woman. Like, what the? Well, not even a woman, it's a kid. Yeah, he wasn't going to leave his wife. He lied to groom her, Evie. February 12th, interview with a coworker of Sandra, who reconnected around the age 17 to 18. Sandra disclosed she was involved with a married man, the baby's father, reported that he was unhappy about the pregnancy. An argument ensued after Sandra said that she would tell his wife and employer. He allegedly took her phone. The incident occurred approximately 2 weeks before Sandra's death, and Sandra expressed belief that he loved her more than his wife. Coworkers believed Sandra may intentionally become pregnant. February 23rd, 2021, an internal affairs case is open. The internal affair findings is basically August 29th, 2022 is when the report was submitted. 2010, Sandra joined the program. 2011, Robert Devine assumes control of the police officers program. April 10th, Sandra turns 15 years old. 2016, she graduates from school. 2018, William meets Sandra when she expresses her interest in joining the Army. February 11th, 2020, text messages occur between Matthew and Birchmore. So William had met her first, and then Matthew gets involved. Messages are later cited as evidence of ongoing communication while Birchmore was a minor. April 19, 2020, William is assigned to a midnight to 8 a.m. desk shift. His text messages with Sandra begin at 6:47 a.m. Messages continue past the end of his shift. April 29th, 2020, William is assigned to another midnight shift. He exchanges again messages with Birchmore beginning at 4:39 p.m. and they continue past 8 o'clock a.m. William, on May 6th, is assigned to another midnight shift. He exchanges again text messages with Sandra starting at 6:42 a.m. and they continue until approximately 7:25 a.m. June 7th, 2020, Matthew exchanges messages with Sandra while on duty. He requests she meet him on Walnut Street. November 7th, 2020, Robert communicates with Sandra via Facebook Messenger. Some communications occur while Robert Devine is on duty. At least one exchange occurs while Devine is on duty December 21st. December 21st is when William is assigned to a paid detail from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. He ends up texting with Sandra throughout the morning again. So I guess she was having a relationship with both of them. Hi, Excited Utterance. Good to see you, love. Thank you for being here. Love your channel too, girl. February 4th, 2021, Canton police conduct a well-being at 40 Holbrook Avenue, Canton, Mass. Sandra is found deceased in her apartment. She is pronounced dead at the scene. So that was on February 4th. February 5th, Mass State Police notify Stoughton Police Chief Donna McNamara that Matthew had a prior romantic relationship with Birchmore. Chief McNamara directed Deputy Chief Holmes to open an internal affairs investigation into the unattended death of Sandra. I can't imagine that the brothers didn't know they were abusing the same child. They had to have known, right? They had to have known about each other. I believe that. February 6, 2021, Matthew is interviewed by Mass Police. He admits to a sexual relationship with Sandra. He claims he last saw her on February 1st, 2021. He states that they argued around 9:30 p.m. On February 8th, 2021, Holmes authors the internal investigation report, later completed and submitted August 29th. Holmes states that the chief received weekly updates. Moving on from that. February 24th, 2021. After Sandra's death, Stoughton Police Department, Detective Matthew Farwell was placed on administrative leave. Farwell turned in his issued equipment and department property pursuant to the administrative leave memo. On February 26th, Deputy Chief Holmes retrieved access of a control thumb drive belonging to Matthew. He retired the access and verified that it was an IMC controlled drive. The thumb drive was placed into a box and secured in Holmes' office. On March 3rd, there was a memorial service held for Sandra. The service announcement included, quote unquote, "May her memory be a blessing." It was scheduled for 11 o'clock a.m. and the memorial image features a picture of Sandra with her cat. Oh, that makes me sad. March 2nd, deputy chiefs prepared an inventory of property taken from Matthew Farwell. March 4th, a death certificate is issued for Sandra. March 15th, the internal affairs. Deputy Chief Holmes receives communications from an individual whose name is redacted in the report. The individual sent documents that include letters written by Sandra, other communications authored by Sandra. March 16th through the 17th of 2021, Birchmore's apartment property. Deputy Chief Holmes documented that Sandra's property was recovered from her apartment. The property was placed into boxes. The boxes were turned over to MSP. Holmes retained some potential handwritten notes that might be relevant. He reviews the documents. Okay, puts them into evidence. April 26, 2021. Matthew Farwell's department issued phone transfer to MSP. The transfer was done in cooperation with MSP Police Unattended Death Investigation. May 21st, 2021. The Mass State Police tests evidence recovered from Sandra Birchmore's apartment. Birchmore's underwear tests positive for sperm cells. Fingernail clippings test positive for DNA. The ligature around Sandra's neck tests positive for male DNA. That's a document we're getting into tomorrow. We're going to be getting into 2 documents tomorrow. State investigators did not obtain DNA from Farwell or anyone else for comparison. Cause of death. This is when the Mass State Police rules that Sandra's death becomes a suicide. She was 23 years old and approximately 3 months pregnant. A state police investigation found no evidence of foul play. And that's all obviously not true. July 30th, 2021, there's an evidence review meeting. August 2021, Norfolk County District Attorney's Office records indicate that the office's investigation had been closed by August of 2021. September 3rd, 2021, an evidence thumb drive is delivered. Deputy Chief Holmes receives a thumb drive from Sergeant Fanning. Now, does that sound familiar from the Karen Reed case as well, of the MSP? The thumb drive contained evidence from the unattended death investigation of Sandra. Holmes labeled the thumb drive as evidence related to the victim. September 6, 2021, a blacklight case Birchmore PDF created. The file contained everything pulled from Sandra's computer, screenshots, emails, text messages, and annotated communications. September 30th, 2021, there's a preliminary review of digital evidence, which contained roughly 50,000 pages of communication from Sandra's computer, which had reportedly been synchronized with her cell. The notes that the material include text messages, iMessages, and other communications was difficult to review because it was not in chronological order and messages were duplicated. October 6, 2021, Sandra's laptop. Deputy Chief Holmes met with Sergeant Fanning at the District Attorney's Office. Sergeant Fanning provided Holmes with Sandra's MacBook Air laptop. Holmes placed the laptop in for review. Okay, November 4th, there was conversations involving Matthew Farwell and involving William Farwell, the brothers. Photographs and videos exchanged between Birchmore and Matthew were shown. November 9th, Holmes reviews the SPD Explorer program files. November 10th, Holmes continues reviewing documents from the files. December 7th, Holmes conferred with parties whose names were redacted in the report. We're going to jump to January 10th and to January 11th, 2022. Holmes requested a forensic analyst of a couch. Holmes obtained authorization through MSP chain of command for assistant in the administrative investigation. January 14th, 2022. Animal control examination. Animal cages positioned along 2 sides. This is when I think they went to the animal control building. A couch located near the front door, a desk and an office chair. Remember, she was having sex with the guy at the animal shelter. Forensic examination methods use ALS to identify or trace biological evidence. January 21st, registered his own business with Massachusetts Secretary of Commonwealth. So they're talking about, I skipped a part of it. The results were negative for targeted substances. No stains detected. But if they were having sex on the couch. Moving on. January 26th, crime laboratory report formally issued and electronically signed by forensic scientists. Okay. March 21st, 2022, Matthew Farwell submits his resignation. This is when he decides he's resigning. Yeah, of course he is. March 28th, Holmes left a message for a witness scheduling an interview. Okay. Were assigned to conduct Deveen's interview. Holmes decided he would not personally participate in the interview of Officer Robert Deveen. So this is when they're starting to look at him. Let's see. I'm going to skip some of this. June 23rd, 2022, Holmes documented a social media allegation involving a Stoughton police officer. Holmes emailed William Farwell notice an investigatory interview on July 21st. Then on July 31st, 2022, William resigned. So both of the brothers resigned. Then on August 16th, Robert Devine resigns from the Stoughton Police Department. They're such cowards. I can't stand these. August 29th, these men. Findings sustained multiple violations against all three former officers. So this is when finally sustained findings by Officer Matthew Farwell, conduct unbecoming an officer, inappropriate relationship with the minor, lack of sound judgment, failure of attention and devotion to duty. Same with William. Robert, lack of sound judgment, untruthfulness during an internal affairs interview, failure of attention and devotion to duty. They determined that through text messages, department attendance, files, exactly. So the police didn't do their jobs. Nope. The brothers would have talked about her because how did Matthew meet her? Exactly. I don't remember this case. It's been a long time since I watched. I've only covered it once before too. Yeah, they found Sandra's cell phone it was on the, no, the glasses were on the bed. The phone was found next to her where she allegedly hung herself. Okay, so that's where we're going to end because the next part is, well, there's a lot. We'll be going through like the timeline of the investigation more tomorrow when we read the opposition to government's motion for detention, which is lengthy. And then there's their response, which I want to go through because the response is, let me make myself bigger. The response is where they find Farwell's DNA on the strap around her neck and in her underwear. So that's how long it took. Yeah, I know. This is so disturbing, right? Like, sorry, my phone is going off. Let me see. I do have the death certificate. You can't really see anything though. Because remember, it was ruled a suicide first, and then they were like, no, this was not a suicide. We'll be going through more videos on the autopsy. It's a whole long thing. There's a lot of details here that we need to pay attention to. But I do have all the court paperwork too, which is thousands and thousands of pages. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you guys really quick. So this is like the Youth Explorer program. The Civilian Youth Explorers program is motivated for teens with a cutoff age at 21. It is a 10-week physically and mentally demanding program based loosely on an actual police academy experience. Graduates of the program are eligible for department ride-along during the summer months. The primary purpose is to give the youth of Stoughton and surrounding towns an activity where they are occupied during high-risk times of the day and to have non-confrontational interactions with police officers. This program is geared towards young people with an interest in policing, medical, fire service, military service, or a desire to serve their community. So this Youth Explorer program is where she met, is being run by the Predators. So my only advice to you is if you have children, and you don't need to take it from me, but if you have children, definitely make sure to scope out and vet the programs where your child are participating. Where your children or your child is participating. Awareness is important. So we're going to go over the docs tomorrow. I'll make it a separate live because this one's we've been talking about Sandra for the last, for a while now. But like I said, I have covered Sandra Birchmore case here before. It's just been a while. I'm sad. I'm sad for Sandra. Look at her. I know. Think about all the cases Canton police have been involved with that we haven't heard about. That's the thing, 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆, with everything from the Karen Reed case to the 𝗠𝗲𝗺𝗵𝗆 Fitzsimmons case to Ellen Greenberg, which we'll be doing a deep dive on here probably this weekend, and Sandra Birchmore. They're all victims of corrupt police work. It's horrible, terrifying. I feel sorry for her and her unborn baby. Yeah, he has trial in October. I would love to be there. Do not put your children in these young explorer programs. There's a high rate of 𝗝cie in all of them. She was pretty. I know. I didn't realize I was yapping away for so long, but you guys are here, so must have not been too bad. At least you guys will have all the details. We're going to go through the paperwork slowly but surely. Tomorrow we'll go through both documents filed on March 26, 2026, and the state replied on the 6th of this month. So we will absolutely be going through all of that. Justice for Sandra Birchmore and everyone else involved. Who knows? Who knows how many other kids were groomed in that program? And I'm wondering if that will come out. She was so pretty. I know. Anyways, thank you all for being here. This was a long live. I try not to make it long, but I always say that. Madden, Evie, Richie, Angel Eyes, all saying thank you for the super chats and membership. Melly should read Audible books. I know, I get that a lot. We have a 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆 live. Are you guys even still up to listen to me yapping? Megan Hall is the adult version of this case. Oh, I've never heard of that. Is that something I'm going to need to get into? Oh. Ooh, she was the one who was grooming males, huh? Male kids. Heartbreaking for sure. I'll have to look into that, Agent Orange. Anyways, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Debbie. At least by the time this goes to trial, we're set. We know everything, and I have already read all the documents to you. So, yes, okay. It's just a thing listening to you read. Okay, so I was yapping away about Sandra, but listen, I'm very passionate about the Sandra case, just as I am for 𝗠𝗲𝗵𝗆𝗆 Fitzsimmons. You guys know about 𝗠𝗲𝗵. Let me, okay. I will see you guys in 15 minutes. 15 minutes for 𝗠𝗲𝗵 reading. Let's have a little fun. We've been doing a lot of JLR stuff. Well, wait. It's fun as in we have fun, but justice for Dominic Russo also. Anyways, we'll talk about that over there. I will see you guys in 15 minutes. Grab your drinks, your food. No, she got done wrong by all department. Oh, okay, Agent Orange. I'll have to look into that. I'll look into it. So 15 minutes. Let me grab my drink. We'll have fun over at 𝗠𝗲𝗵. If you're not familiar with that case, I don't even know where to tell you where to start, but definitely start with my playlist. I'm excited about some 𝗠𝗲𝗵 stuff. I'm working on something and I'm not going to tell you guys. I'm really excited. Anyways, thank you for being here. Justice for Sandra Birchmore. We support Sandra Birchmore here on Mellyverse. We are advocates for child raping, child abuse. I'm big on it, and mental health. So you already know how I feel. Shout out to all of you for being here. Please, please, please tap, 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 tap the like button. I'm going to join. Thank you. I'll see you guys in 15 minutes. Let's go over and have some fun with some Kenzie text messages and justice for Sandra Birchmore.